Welcome into the On the Hunt podcast. I'm Luke.
This is John.
Joe.
Jake.
We got a bunch of new people in here tonight.
We sure do.
Makes me real nervous.
We do. We got a bunch of folks in
We
here.
still don't have the main culprit. No supervision.
None. No. I don't know if he's coming back.
Oh, no, he'll be back.
Yeah,
Listen, we might as well next time. We probably shouldn't even show up because he's going to have so much to say and so much to talk about that we're not going to talk anyway.
We'll probably get text messages beforehand. Do you think he's listened to the last couple episodes?
I listened to the last one.
I mean, I know you
I wasn't
have.
on.
I know you have.
I don't know if he did or not.
Usually
What do
we
you
get
think?
a thumbs up or something like that, or, hey, you know, that was pretty good. He's always pretty complimentary unless you cut up too much. I hadn't got one of those yet.
Y'all ain't gotten in trouble yet?
I've got
I haven't. I didn't say, don't say.
I'm pretty sure
y'all.
I've got a-
I haven't.
I'm pretty sure I've got a "we need to talk"
Yeah.
text.
Really?
Pretty sure.
Yeah. He fired Trey. Fired him completely. Moved him out of
and
state.
him to Mississippi.
Yeah,
Yeah,
moved
moved
him to
him to another
Mississippi.
state.
Can't even show his face here anymore.
Yeah.
It's
All
terrible.
because whenever we was praying at church one time and he said vibe.
Something about vibes. You can't mess up around here, buddy. I promise.
And you get one attaboy a year around here. It's a great crowd to hang out with. Let me tell you, boy.
It is. It is. Glad to have everybody here tonight. We've got, of course, me, Luke, Jake. We got Johnny sitting over there in the chair. Brennan's taking care of us behind all the IT. Shane's joining us. One more time.
Joe.
That's right. So I'm glad to have everybody here. Glad y'all could show up. I know this is it's a tough week. You know, we got fall break around here anyway. Lots of folks are gone. Hopefully everybody's back home right now. Anybody that went down south, went down there and trekked the beaches. I think most of the folks around here seem to go to like what is it, Orange Beach or Pensacola, something like that. So
Panama.
yeah.
Like,
Even Panama was okay.
Yeah.
For the most
Yeah,
part.
it went.
Yeah, they got
down
wind shear
south.
out there, but I don't think they got anything. I know some of my son's friends got held up over in Orlando and ended up having to go back to Panama and stay a couple of days.
We got some friends that were in Orlando and rode it out.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They was at Disney.
Oh, okay. I think I saw some postings about
Yeah.
that.
They're okay, though. I talked to him today.
That's good. That's
He
good.
said he went and bought a rope.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and he lassoed that thing like Wild Bill.
I heard that. It must have been what slowed it down a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll tell you,
Hey, that's what took it from a 4 to a 3.
Hey, well, I'm gonna tell you. Don't forget, Katrina hit as a 3. You know, it was. There's been some 5s hit, but Katrina was a 3 when it made landfall, and we all remember it, the devastation they went through. So
It turned into a 5, didn't it?
it was a 5, and then it came back down. Like I think as it hit,
I think too, it has a lot of it too. Is New Orleans is below sea level.
that had a lot to do with it too. And I think that's kind of what they were worried about, not being too much below in the Tampa area, but definitely being overexposed. They've been working on the things that I've read. They've been working on the infrastructure there to withstand like 8 to 10 foot storm surges over the last few years, like a $70 million upgrade right there by the bay. And then they come in with this storm that's supposed to have 12 to 15 foot storm surges. So,
And it's not very often you see them storms come from like the opposite side,
no,
come across the Gulf rather than come around the end of Florida and up.
sure.
You
And
know.
it's, we watched it with work for quite a while, just in its inception. And I think that's what most of the time you can see these things coming a little bit. This one jumped in 72 hours from just a tropical event to a Cat 4. Every reading that they had, every model that they had showed that this thing was going to hit between a high 3 and a mid 4. But once you get sustained winds of 165 mile an hour, it really don't matter what category
No.
it is. Like it's just
Wow.
yeah.
Did
it
anybody
is.
see the guy, Lieutenant Dan,
Oh yeah.
that was down there that rode it out
Oh,
in his
yeah.
little 20-foot sailboat?
He's going to have more invites to Thanksgiving dinner than anybody else.
Ain't no doubt.
I saw an interview. He was comparing himself to Noah. And the analogy he used, which was genius, he's like, Noah was in the boat and lived. Everybody else died. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And it makes sense.
But in that same interview, right after that, he said, I wish I had 2 women in the boat with me.
Yeah, I was going to ask if that was the interview I saw a part of. He was standing there in crutches and was smoking a Marlboro Red, and everybody seemed to be worried about him. But it's looked like he made it, and I know that it's going to be several days before they know the full
That
extent
guy's a
of the
true
damage.
American hero.
Oh gosh, he is
He's
the
gonna be
poster
a-
child of America.
Yeah, he's now a new folklore tale.
He is going to get so many promotional deals out of this. Goodness gracious. But yeah, so they don't have any tolls out as far as how many have truly passed, but we're still waiting on that for Helene. But I think it could have been worse. But I don't think that you can, personally, I don't think you can overhype these things enough. It's best to prepare and to have people not scared, but definitely informed.
Right.
I don't think that you can say, I mean, when they label, and I'm talking about, National Council officials, FEMA officials, and I know everybody has differing views on government teams, FEMA and stuff like that. But when the governor when the governor of Florida, when all these people, EMA directors everywhere, are calling this thing an unsurvivable event, you probably need to take heed of it. But that's not to say that whoever stayed was wrong. There's people that can't stay. We don't think about the nursing homes or the hospitals or the elderly with no families or even prisons and things like that where people just can't. They don't have the resources. And if you don't leave ahead of it, you're going to be there. There was people still stuck in traffic when this thing hit.
Yeah.
It's almost one of those things where personally, if somebody decided to stay, I could almost understand. I would encourage people to leave if they could, but how do you escape 600 mile an hour or 600 mile wind spans? 600 mile wind spans. That's you just can't. Some of these things you can't get away from. You can only prepare to a certain extent. So, but
As bad as it was, I was telling my wife, I said, "Thank you, Jesus, the dams didn't breach."
And that's the thing. Like, we see this storm on radar that looks like it's the world's largest tornado, and yes, it's got terrible wind and stuff. But the after effects, the receding waters, the polluted waters, the overflow into rivers and tributaries in the area. There were neighborhoods where you could see crocodiles and alligators swimming, or alligators, I think it was, like swimming in the neighborhood.
Yeah, coming inside the house with them.
Yeah, and so I can't even imagine all the different things that you got to deal with. But the
them folks in Florida built different.
they are, and it's usually on the coast. But when you got half the state or the middle of the state that's fearful of the world ending, overnight. How do you prepare for something like that? So kudos to all the people, and I've heard of volunteer teams around here in the West Tennessee area, all the way through the middle part of the country that have gone and helped. So kudos to those people that went down there and helped, and the people that are still helping out with Helene over in the mountains and stuff. That's still such a bad situation. So just everybody anybody listening, keep everybody in your prayers and your thoughts. If you can give, make sure that you know where you're giving to, but we've got to be able to love on these people somehow, so if all you can do is pray, that's the best thing that we can do for these folks. So a big week when it comes to that kind of stuff. Glad our people are okay. We had some football over the weekend.
Yeah, we did.
Here we go.
So
It's going to be a quiet few minutes on this, I believe.
y'all want to talk about hunting?
We can, but if we do, we're in trouble. I mean,
Oh man, yeah, I went to the Arkansas Tennessee game as a loyal Tennessee fan.
when'd you know? Like at what point?
Kickoff.
Gosh,
I felt bad about it the entire day.
really?
We was tailgating. They was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "We're gonna lose today." No, we ain't gonna lose to Arkansas. It's kind of set up right. We got Florida next week, they've been reading the newspapers for 2 weeks now that we're number 4 in the country and
Yep.
we're the greatest thing in 20 years in Knoxville. And they might be overlooking Arkansas a little bit.
And coming off a victory over Oklahoma,
Yeah.
but not a 50-point,
I really
showdown.
I really thought that 2 weeks off that they would come out. Dude, they were just watching from the stands. They were not firing on all cylinders. Like, you could just see it. There was no get up. At certain points in times, you could see why they was number 4 in the country. Whenever we come out after halftime, I looked over at Samantha and I said, they're fixed to come out and run the football. I can almost, if I was a bet man, I'd probably put my house on it that they're going to come out and run the football. And what did they do? They ran it for 2 straight drives and scored touchdowns in 5 minutes. And I said,
Maybe.
they come out and run the football. I said, here we go. And then I started feeling a little better, like we're fixed to take over. And then we had a roughing the punter penalty. That was pretty cheap, in my opinion. I don't know if anybody else seen it, but the guy's arm hit the kicker in the head, and the guy pulled a LeBron James and laid out on the floor. And they threw a flag. And from that point on, I said, we're about to get beat.
Yeah.
Like, I just knew we was supposed to get beat right then and there.
And Josh, in our text with him, and I don't know Arkansas football history like Josh does.
Nice fans.
Really?
Yeah, they was as shocked as we was, to
Really?
be honest.
Well, and they seem to be a humble
Except
crowd.
for a few fraternity guys
Yeah.
that come by us. I had to grab I was with a lot of unsaved people. No, they may claim to be saved, but I don't know if it's 100%. Just the way that the weekend was going and
Yeah.
stuff. But I had to grab a buddy, one of my best friends. Dude come by and was jawing to him, and we're a pretty cool, calm, and collective. And dude kept running his mouth, and then dude made a really smart comment to him. And my buddy turned around. He was wearing checkerboard overalls, and he turned around like beeline. I knew what was going on because I done seen it. This isn't my first rodeo seeing this. And I could just grab the overalls and turn around and said, come on, buddy, not today. Not today.
Yeah, tensions get
But
high for sure.
It was, but most of the people there were really cool.
Yeah.
Well,
something Josh said that he said that they've had I don't want to say the wrong thing because I don't want to misquote him, but he said that they've had bigger wins, and that may be true. I can't remember except for the last time that I went to Tennessee Arkansas game where Arkansas won.
Yeah.
And kind of took over the
well,
game.
in the last 5 years, Sam Pittman's been there. Sam Pittman said it was the biggest win he's been a part of at Arkansas.
And
I could see that.
I can see that, but to say it like this though, and I sent it in the text too, and maybe it was just the way that I was. Again, don't watch them every week, just see the highlights and stuff. But you almost could have put anybody in front of Arkansas, and they were going to give them the game.
Yeah.
The way their offense was running, their running back, that monster, their defense, they were just in the right. That's what it looks like when a ball club is in the right mindset. As much as I hate that they lost, that Tennessee lost, it just goes to show that even the teams that aren't ranked, they've got something to prove. They're out to ruin somebody's
I mean,
Saturday.
look at Vanderbilt.
Oh yeah,
Anchor down.
yeah. I mean, that was huge. That was huge. I'm not a Bama fan. I'm not
But
a
I like
hate
watch-
Bama fan,
Oh,
but
I
I'm
love
not a
watch- I
I'm
love
not a
watching
Bama
them
fan.
get beat.
But that too also just shows that any Saturday it's anybody's game.
Very true.
They played amazing. It's not like Alabama shot themselves several times, but don't discredit Vandy for what they did. They put up some points. They had some great stops.
Clark League's halftime speech. I listened to it today, and I was like, I'm ready to run through a brick wall right now.
I would fight a buffalo right now.
But honestly, and I bet you he will see it eventually, even if he doesn't now. But he probably is mature enough as a coach. It's probably good that Kalen DeBoer has something like this now, first year in.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? For his, like, moving forward. Because I can't imagine coming in after Saban and
But
having
what
to
about
live up to
Saban's
that.
comments about
That was so good.
Could
the
not
easiest,
have
couldn't have been better
So good.
timing.
could not have been a better
Easiest place to
timing.
play in the SEC is Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Right.
Said you got more fans in the stands than they do. I mean, you know, and that.
Which Alabama, there was more Alabama fans there.
Oh, without a
Whenever
doubt.
I watched the overhead
Yeah,
shot,
because
of them-
Vandy is a hospital.
right,
Vanderbilt is a hospital.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Look,
These guys are going to be doctors when they leave
Yeah.
that field.
yeah.
I watched the goalpost coming down Broadway, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool to watch."
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, "It's about 150 people carrying that goalpost."
Yeah,
down
that's what I was
Broadway
thinking
right
too.
now.
All the fans.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was like, man, they're probably getting the Bama fans to carry the goalposts for them.
Yeah, we all
Those
help.
boys. Yeah, exactly. Those old boys just couldn't get it done.
They'll be doing surgery one day, 10 years from now, talking about this game.
Definitely a Saturday that'll be remembered for a while. So a lot of football left to play, though. Lots of football left to play. So it throws things for a loop in the top 25. So it's going to be interesting to see them play out. But Tennessee's going to have to play out the rest of the year. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's going to be a fight for them every week the rest of the year. So and they can no longer look to that Vandy game as a gimme. You know, I mean, let's just put it out there. So, but it's going to give Vanderbilt some good credit. It's going to give Arkansas some good credit. Good games, just outcomes were not what anybody was expecting. So that's one of the fun things about college football every year, though.
So we got a nice food plot coming in right now.
Let's talk about that, Luke. We hadn't had anybody on in the last couple of weeks. We hadn't had anybody on the last couple of weeks that really is into the hunting game. So what we got going on there?
Well, food plots are coming in, nice and green. Got some pretty good bucks on camera. I'm pretty pumped. The last weekend of the month is a juvenile hunt, and we have a pretty good buck showing up every day in daylight right now. That my boy's going to have a good shot at killing,
Yeah.
and pretty fired up about that.
Is this his first year? He been with you before, or is this his first year to really get into it?
This is his first year. He's been and watched, but we got him a gun for Christmas, a 243 youth model last year, and he took it out, but never got to pull the trigger. So I think he took it. I think we may have took it one time.
Either one of y'all hunt? Y'all do you hunt?
Yeah, I hunt. I don't do much deer hunting. I'm
Duck hunter?
mostly waterfowl.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to get as much information on it as possible. It fascinates me. I just don't have that kind of commitment in me. So, but it'll be good for him. It'll be good for you and him. That'll be a
he's
good
gonna-
thing this year.
He's grabbing my phone every day. We got any more pictures? We got some new pictures.
Y'all have a family lease? What do y'all do? Y'all
A buddy of mine, a guy that he knows owns 400 or 500 acres,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
and so he gave us hunting rights basically. I mean, he hunts too with us, and but he pretty much just was like, "Mi casa, su casa, make
Yeah.
your stuff at home." He bought he paid for all the deer stands and everything, box stands. His philosophy was, he told me, he was like, "Man, if you're hunting with us and something happens and you're kicked out, you're going to want to get your stands and take them with you.
Yeah.
If I pay for the stands and put them in there, you ain't taking nothing." You know, so I mean,
great.
it's pretty good philosophy. But
All right, so are you, Pawpaw, Grandpawpaw, and boy going to be able to go this year for y'all?
my dad wanted to take Huck this weekend's Kentucky Juvenile.
Yeah.
Callie has a ball tournament this weekend, and the way the work schedule is fixing to lay out, and with the other juvenile and stuff, and then the opening day of muzzleloader, this may be the last softball tournament that I'm able to attend. So we picked going to the softball tournament over going to Kentucky deer hunting, which is kind of a bummer, but it's supposed to be like 90
Yeah.
this weekend, so really ain't that upset. I mean, we could have went fishing.
Yeah.
86 Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then next Monday and Tuesday is going to be like 63.
I remember telling my family back when I guess it was probably late part of July, early part of August, right when school was starting, and and what I do for a living, it revolves around bad weather, and watching. You turn into a weatherman doing what we do, and I told them, I remember them complaining, man, it's hot outside, this, that, and then they're outside kids, but it was. I mean, I think it was right after school started. And they're like, man, I never remember it being 100 degrees when school started. I was like, hey, y'all just wait, because it's going to be 90s halfway through October. And they were like, oh, you're crazy. You're not going to.
Yeah. Sunday's high is 92.
There it is. I'm telling you. It's
Monday's high,
60 something, I'm sure.
70.
Everybody's going to be sending their kids home first week back.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tennessee.
All the kids going
Everybody
to come
gonna
home
have
sick.
that old man pneumonia. Low of 40 Tuesday night.
Yes, sir. So it's we've definitely had an
Might get a push of
elongated-
ducks down.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
When's that start?
you back.
Spec season in Arkansas is end of October, and then waterfowl season, regular duck season will be somewhere towards the end of November. I'm not sure exactly what day it starts, but
What does it run through?
it'll run through December and January.
Oh, okay. It's a good longer season then.
Yeah, it's pretty
Gotcha.
good.
They close it right before, the ducks made up by February. They usually have a mate by then, so they close it right before the mating begins. That way, we have more ducks next year.
Do you have your own spot, or do you have a group of people that pitch in on a spot?
Yeah, so we've got a pretty good size club or lease in Arkansas. They've added some more this year. We've got 5 owners, and they own a piece of property or house, and then we lease ground, and we got a couple thousand acres with several pits and blinds and stuff
Nice.
that we hunt
Wow.
and flood and things like that. And so, pretty good size, club.
Now, when it comes to, and I know we'll talk about it later on in the year, but just so I know, in case anybody else is interested. So is there any kind of, like, you guys put out plots, you guys put up stands, you guys do all that for deer. Is there any kind of land prep for waterfowl?
I mean, yes, the answer is yes across the board. Arkansas, it's all prepped for you because we're hunting all row crop or naturally flooded stuff. So you could go in there and plant some millet or corn or whatever you want to plant if you had something that you were flooding, and areas like that. But most, like if you pit, sled blinds, things like that, it's all row crop farms, and so you're just waiting for the farmers to go in there and get their harvest out and start pumping water in it.
Oh, okay.
And then we go out there. Of course, we have our things that we do, but
You
most
like-
of it,
You like for them to leave a little bit around your blind and stuff.
right.
That
I
way,
didn't know that.
it
Yeah, I didn't
attracts.
either.
Yeah. And ducks also go, they have what we call them natural holes.
Right.
So, like, you could have a hole that looks phenomenal here, and the hole next door doesn't look as good, but they're falling in that one next door, even though yours looks better. But that hole they've been going to forever. It's natural to them.
Statistically, and I forget what it was, but I try to make it. It's a habit of mine to read some things in the Ducks Unlimited magazine every year. I don't know. I feel like it's what I need to do to know what I'm doing, and it doesn't contribute anything to killing ducks, but it's just knowledge. And I can't remember exactly what it said, but basically it was like, if a duck can ever make the full migration one time, he's 7 times more likely to die of natural causes than he is to be shot, because once a duck determines the route that he'll fly every year during migration, he sticks to it almost exactly.
Wow.
Because he knows, okay, I'm safe if I land in these waterways and these water holes. Like I'm safe here, and so you can build the most duckiest place you could ever create, and if he's figured out that that's a dangerous area, he'll never go to it.
Wow.
And if he does, it'll be an accident.
That's pretty intense.
And that's
man.
why they put these sanctuaries up,
Right.
Yeah.
and they're all over the place. Well, ducks flock to it.
Right.
They sit on it. You can't kill them.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
They know they're protected there.
and they're protected,
Yeah.
so they keep going there. So, and those sanctuaries, then they get into a habit of flying from this sanctuary to that sanctuary, and it messes up holes that used to be natural and used to kill them. Well, now they didn't change the flight path.
Right.
Wow.
You know,
I have a couple guys at
they're
my work.
smarter than what we give them credit.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, a couple guys at my work are big duck hunters, and I was talking to one the other day, and I was asking a couple questions, and he says at the beginning of the season it's all good, but towards the end they get smart.
Right. They start wising up to you. Something else that I've read too that I've never even considered, and I've hunted ducks for quite a while, is all of the research that's been done on waterfowl throughout the years since they really started diving into it and stopped killing ducks commercially and stuff. There is some research now suggesting that ducks don't migrate the way that they used to because of all of the implants they put in, like the implant mallards and things that Ducks Unlimited and other places have. Those ducks have farm duck genetics. And so the instinct to get up and migrate every year is not as strong in ducks as it used to be. And so people are like, well, they're staying up north because there's food up there and there's water up there, which is a fact. But they're suggesting that maybe they're staying up north more now because instinctually it's not in them anymore to migrate because they've been breeding farm ducks to them for sake of testing and learning more about ducks.
I wonder how that affects the ecosystem.
And it's even changed. The migration has even changed in the last 10 years.
Right.
Does that affect the eco in any kind of way? Ducks not migrating like they used to?
I don't think it does. I mean, it really, probably the farmers in Arkansas would prefer to never see a duck or any web-footed creature on their fields. Really, it's a major source of revenue for people who do kill them and farm for them. But we don't see anything on our end of the U.S. from the lack of a migration. We
Don't get to kill them.
Yeah, you don't kill as many, and we don't kill as many mallards now. We haven't killed.
I was fixing to ask that if you can see a decline in
Major decline.
Yeah, I figured as much.
But you read the articles and the numbers be way up.
Right. They've all, and I read the numbers every year, and it's always something that's really promising. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's there are plenty days we've hunted in Arkansas and walked away with with limits of everything but a mallard.
Wow.
They're just not coming.
And it's fun,
Right.
but it ain't. If you ain't got that green in there with it, you're like,
The old heads really don't like it.
yeah,
They don't.
like
They don't
you
like
feel
it.
like you done missed out,
Right.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha. Man, that's a lot of good information right there. I just had no idea. One last question though, and it may not be. It may not have anything to do with that, but when you keep talking about how the farmers, they naturally flood their land. What's the purpose behind that?
So of course, your rice fields already have water in them.
Yeah.
But then farmers, the land's already leveed up, and so when you get a lot of rain, typically in the fall we get a tremendous amount of rain. A farmer, if his levees are still up from the rice fields, he just has to fix up a couple of spots where he caused it to drain, and it will flood. But you have to have water. Ducks that fly this far south prefer water to land in. You can go to other places, other flyways where you can dry field hunt ducks, no problems. I've done that, but here you're not going to kill a duck unless you're shooting it on the water.
Gotcha.
And under, I guess, basically any circumstances.
Yeah, very rarely.
I've
around
seen
here.
a couple years ago when everything froze up around here for a few days. I saw ducks landing in the parking lot of the fire station because the parking lot of the fire station had been snow plowed and the black asphalt had thawed out, and so everything else was white except for the parking lot. And they looked at it and thought it was a body of water, and they would flying down, and they were literally hitting the blacktop and then flying back up and then hooking around and then doing it again because they thought it was water there.
Wow.
Because it looked so much. That's how bad they want to be in a water hole. They don't want to land anywhere else.
Yeah.
And that's true in the United States and in the Mississippi Flyway, but it's not true across the board because I've killed them in dry fields. And
So what do you prefer, water or dry field?
I love it all. As long as we're killing ducks, I have no real preference. I think both of them are fun. Dry field hunting is cleaner. It's cleaner. Obviously, field hunting's just muddy and messy. It's the dog work's a little bit more fun for me if you're hunting in flooded fields. River hunting is you've got that little bit of a thrill getting to where you're going on the river on a boat. So you've kind of got that rush that you have that, and then river hunting you're always fighting the current. You always have several variables in there that you have to go up against. So it's a different style of hunting. But river hunting's fun too. But it's the hardest hunting you'll do. But they all have their place in my heart. Like I if somebody asked me to go, I would go to either one of them. So
Right.
I don't dislike either one. But
To me, one of my favorite parts is getting in, putting it on the bluff up there at Chisholm Lake,
yeah,
and having to take that boat ride all the way back there,
right.
freezing cold, ice sticking to everything, and you're
Right.
like, this is what it's all about.
Right. It feels good. Especially if you get on some moving water, you're going to Mississippi or something, and you've got that little misty in your face, and you riding through there, and you're not going fast, but you're moving pretty good, so it's kind of risky,
Yeah.
and it feels good. You feel you feel like Adam out there naming the animals. You know, like you feel it feels good. You know, it does. I'll give you that.
So you don't have much of a preference, but does your dog?
Yeah. So my dog does not have a preference. He on Martin Luther King Day a few years ago, he broke ice to catch ducks because where we were hunting it was shallow, and so he would run to the end of the ice until it broke under his feet, and then he would swim, climb up ice, grab the duck, and then reverse back. He would come back.
Wow.
And so he was. So that's for sure. So I did hunt him on the river one time. We shot a couple wood ducks or something. They came in and we shot him, and the river was on the fall and it was moving pretty good. And I went in and sent him. I felt good about it. I knew that he'd pop up on a little further down the bank, but he'd be okay. And I sent him, and he went and got one of the wood ducks, and he come back and he was pretty far out by the time he made it back to the bank. And I decided I wasn't going to send him again. I just didn't. I didn't trust him. I didn't trust him being that far away from me on moving water like that. So he has no preference. If he has no preference, he's just sitting there vibrating with his teeth chattering, waiting for me to release him for whatever fury he thinks he's going to cause when he gets out there.
Did you train him yourself?
So he did go to. He come from a local trainer near Fayette County, and so he went to training with him for a couple months, and then everything else we did at home. Of course, back then I didn't have any children, and so like nights like tonight, I would spend 4 or 5 nights a week. We spent in the backyard underneath the lights training, and I had a program that I followed that I paid for, and it's basically a step-by-step retriever training program.
That's awesome.
And so it was real hands-on for me. It was a really fun time. I really had a great time. I've always had really cool dogs. Anyways, I've been blessed. God's blessed me with. They say you only get one dog. I've had 2 exceptional animals, and I just have a real connection with them. And so I really enjoyed training both of them.
That's be such a great bonding too.
Right, it is. And now, like this dog I have now, his name's Banks, but he is
Like Riverbanks or Money
yeah,
Banks?
actually that's his name. So his name is Tennessee Red Riverbanks. He's a red lab, and so that's what my name is. So yes, Riverbanks is his name, but he was exceptional dog, exceptional hunting dog. He was good to me and my now wife, and now we have 2 small kids at home, and he's just you. I don't know if I could have handmade him myself any better as far as the way he is around the house. And then when we get to Arkansas and he hears them truck tires hit that gravel in Arkansas, he just turns into a different animal. He just starts talking and moaning and grunting and jumping, running around. Right. He knows whenever we hit gravel in Arkansas that he knows when I start pulling the camouflage out and the dog kennel out that it's getting close.
Right.
And then I tell everybody when I'm out there loading the truck, he's out there in the front yard popping wheelies, waiting. And he's 7 now, but he's out in that front yard popping wheelies, waiting for me to tell him to get in the back seat.
So I have a female German Shepherd that, granted, we haven't done it in a while now, but she floats on the river with us when we go kayaking.
Right.
And the same thing. She knows when we're starting to pack our luggage, we're going.
Right.
And it hurts your heart on a couple trips when you can't take her, and
Right.
she's sitting there at the door like, "Why are you leaving me here?"
Right. You're right.
I don't have dogs like that. Mine are worthless. All of them.
That's always been a big thing of mine. Like, I've never owned a lab, so I had a blue heeler before him. She lived to be 16, and that dog was a great dog. But I guess I never wanted a dog I couldn't take anywhere I wanted to ever, and I never wanted a dog that I couldn't trust to go somewhere. And of course we talked about my business in town, and I'll bring Banks to work with me, and we'll go to the post office, and I'll get the mail, and we'll walk. We'll walk, and he does. We have to find his collar when we have to go to the vet because he does not have a collar. We don't know where his leash is. Like he is always one audible sound away from me from just attention,
Nice.
And we can walk through the sidewalks of Mumford, go to the post office. He'll sit at the front door and wait. I can go to Nafy's. He'll sit in the truck or the side by side wherever he's at. Like if I tell him to sit, that's exactly what he does. And so I've always wanted dogs like that, and I've always spent the time to make sure I had a dog like that. And you really can't beat it. You can't beat having a dog.
Sounds like a trailer to another dog movie.
No, no. And I hate dog movies, by the way, because they always die.
Yeah.
And you always make it cry.
Right when that dude, when that dude yak Skip on my dog Skip in the
I cried
graveyard,
during that
I'm like we're turning this crap off.
I was over at Taylor Billings' house bawling my eyes out
I
when
know.
we was kids.
We are not watching this. This is trash. Right here. How are our children watching this?
That's
Oh,
good.
baby.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
man.
good. Well, I'm glad to have you guys here. We got some good conversations going. I know we're going to go ahead and share both of you guys' testimony, if that's okay. We'll start with Joe, if that's all right.
Yep.
And just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us how you came to know the Lord.
Well, since it's already 7:30, I won't give you
That's okay.
the full start to finish.
That's
We'll
all right.
kind of summarize a little bit more, but my life has been very much an up and down Christian walk, I guess, if that's a word. Let's see. My parents got divorced when I was 5. I was in kindergarten at Oakland when after the divorce. I was at Brighton kindergarten for half a year. They got divorced. We went to Oakland, went there for kindergarten, first grade, Memphis, second, third, and finally came to Tipton County where I'm at now at third grade at Montfort. About 4th, 5th grade, we're living in Camellia Homes over there off George Orner, right there on that loop. And I don't know how familiar you are with Ronnie Gordon. He was the pastor at the Awakening Church that fell through so many years back. He was the kids pastor at Assembly of God on Beaver Road that became River of Life later on. Him and he would come out to our neighborhood once a week and come out there and play ball with us. We had a field out there between 2 roads and help us with our homework and just hung out with us. That led to him doing a little kids thing called Super Tuesday, where the church van would come to the elementary school, pick up the kids, go hang out there, do Bible study, this, that, and the other, and then parents come pick us up after work. That led to me and my sister going to that church. We'd go on Wednesday nights, church van come pick us up in our neighborhood. My mom started coming, so now it's all 3 of us. My dad at the time was agnostic. He didn't attend with us. Mom prayed. I couldn't give you exact time, but sometime later, he finally came, got saved. Now we're all at River of Life. Well, at the time, it was Assembly of God. Pastor Lehman was the pastor at the time. Church had a fall through. Lehman left, and half the church went with him, including my family. We started having church at the balcony over there off 51. Did that for a little while. My parents had a fall through with them. Came back to River Life, where Greg Timke was now the pastor when he first started. Met my still best friend today, Nick Holt. He was the kids pastor there. Ended up getting involved with him doing kids ministry, and that's where I graduated around that time. He ended up leaving, went back to Florida, lived with his family. I got out of church for several years, kind of did my own thing, got caught up in stuff that any 19-year-old, 20-year-old would normally do that's not in church. Went through a lot of stuff. We won't go into detail on all that right now. We'd be here all night. Finally, let's just say I hit a hidden point, which is probably one of my 2 rock bottoms in my life. And in this scripture we're going to be talking about later, it talks about people crying out to the Lord and that God hears the people crying out. So I'm in my room crying out. I can't tell you right now if I was specifically talking to God, but I was crying out. It was one of those moments where I was like, what am I doing? Are these people I'm even with, do they even care about me? I'm crying to myself, and my friend Nick Holt popped up in my mind. I ain't talked to him in a couple of years at this point. Still have his phone number. But it's one of them friends where you don't talk to, but when you talk to him, it's like you don't skip a beat. He's like, kind of spilled my guts out to him. Why don't you move to Florida with me? I ain't never thought about leaving Tipton County. I was like, you know what? Give me some time and save up some money and see what happens. Saved up $2,500, loaded up a book bag worth of clothes, jumped on a plane, moved to Florida. Stayed down there. We'll skip all the details of my life in Florida. Let's just say I was down there, did kids ministry with him. He was still doing he's still a kids pastor. We can call it an internship. It wasn't an official internship. It's not like I signed papers. I mean, I had guidelines I went by because he did ended up bringing interns. Either way it goes. Down there doing that about 3.5 years. So 3 years in, Ronnie Gordon contacted me. We were talking, and he asked me if I wanted to come back to Tipton County and help him with his kids ministry. Said he couldn't pay me, but he needed help, and I could just get me a side job. I told him no. 6 months later, some stuff was going down, and me and my friend Nick at the time were having a disagreement on things. I was hard-headed. So I was like, you know what? I don't know if this is God telling me to get the love out of Florida, but I called Ronnie back, asked him if he still wanted me. He said, yep. Loaded my couple things up on a Penske truck and drove myself all the way up to the county. So started doing the kids ministry for Ronnie at the Awakening Church, right over there. At the time, they were off by Pawn Shop 51 Pond on Commercial Drive. That's where I met my today wife. She ended up being one of my leaders in the kids ministry that we connected, and she became my girlfriend May 5th, 2017. Got married July 12th, 2018. Then, of course, the awakening falls through. We won't go into the details of that either. Save that for another day. That led to my second rock bottom. And a lot of learning. As James has talked about, you know, I went through all 5 chapters. I've actually never read James like that prior to this past few days. Talked about trials and stuff like that. And I know we all go through our trials, but it allowed me to reflect back on some of my own trials and things that I've learned and things that I learned a couple days ago. So, as me, without Jesus, is a very angry person. I know we all have anger, but I'm a very angry person, and I'm that type of angry person that cuts people at the knees because I feel like I want you to feel how you've made me feel at this moment. Very resentful, very just hateful. And me not being in church, me falling back out of that. And don't get me wrong, I never blamed God. That's something I did learn growing up is it's not God's fault this is happening to me. I understood that. But me and who I am, I hate owing people stuff. I hate repeating myself. If I'm going to hurt you, I'm going to just avoid you. You know what I'm saying? And where I was in my mind at that point was, I'm going to hurt you again tomorrow, God. And so to save you and me both time, I'm just going to do my own thing. That way I ain't got to apologize to you every day for the same thing. Because I'm sorry I sinned today, I did this. But I'm going to do it again tomorrow. I know I'm going to do it again tomorrow. And I don't want to have to keep repeating myself to you. Save you some time, save me some time. And in my head, I'm doing him a favor. Not thinking at that time that the knowledge I have now, that granted at that point I never had kids to myself either, so I didn't understand the role of fatherhood as well. Me and Melissa was together, and she had her kids, and so I came in late, so I didn't get that time as an infant child growing up to develop what being a father really is. Credit to stepdads out there, but so I didn't understand the concept of a father forgiving their son and then that son not accepting that forgiveness and hating themselves. You know, my wife sent me a thing, said it's easier to raise a strong kid than to fix a broken adult. And you don't understand that when you're on that child, they're not hating you, they learn to hate themselves. So I never understood the forgiveness part, and that me not accepting forgiveness, me not repenting, hurt him more than me. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And so anyways, we went through, I call it the year of hell with me and my wife. It was a very rough year for the two of us, and I about gave up on all of it a couple times. I had my first panic attack during that year. Went through that. Finally, we started, my wife being the good woman she is, said, you know what, we need to find a church. And I was like, all right. I said, we'll find a church. But, I grew up in church. I serving in the church in Florida, you get to see the behind the scenes that a lot of people in the congregation don't get to see, the business side of it. You get to see the pastor at home, and you get a perspective that people who just come and sit in a pew won't ever get. If you know, you know. So during our church searching to find a new home, I found myself to be extremely critical. I mean, I was judging everything from the second we pulled into the parking lot, to walking through the front doors, to finding the seat, to everything. And I critiqued everything. And it was bad. I think, you have to agree. You don't want to get into a church and fall under someone who's a false preacher. And I get that. So to a level, you need to critique and you need to have some discernment. You don't want to go in ignorant and just believe anything that someone says. But mine was extreme. And I didn't give anybody a chance.
Yeah.
It was the same thing. And then a lot of our American churches are like that on the Bible Belt. It's the same thing. Go in, you do this, you do this, you do this, you go home. It's the same thing. It's it comes across very fake.
It is. And, and we've, the Western culture has done a fantastic job of concealing what true church is about. And when I say church, I'm talking about Jesus.
Right.
The Western culture has built it into a show. They've put the entire structure on a pedestal, as opposed to putting Jesus on a pedestal. And when you do that, you just take away. You pick and choose. You take away from what the gospel truly is, what it's really about. You can pick and choose what it says to boost numbers. Mm-hmm. And church hurt is a real thing. If anybody watching, anybody listening, anybody in here, I didn't know what that phrase was until maybe a year ago. Had no idea. Not been in and out of church a whole lot my whole life, but my adult life, dabbled in it and, was saved for sure. But first true church experience that you have that breaks your heart will hinder you from a whole lot of servitude to the Lord. And the world that's ran by Satan and his minions will keep you there if you allow them to. They will. The world wants you to stiff arm the Lord, and that includes staying away from His house, staying away from His people, staying away from and being critical. So, if anybody has ever experienced that, this is a real thing. It's a real thing, just like anxiety is, just like depression is, just like anything else that you can think of that hinders your mind, your body, your will. It hurts because you've allowed yourself to be vulnerable in the most vulnerable aspect of your life, your religious beliefs.
And part of it is that I was extremely guilty of, and is people fall in love with the pastor more than they do God. Mm-hmm. And they fall in love with the people more than they do mm-hmm. God. They fall in love with the atmosphere more than they do God.
Absolutely.
So when that goes, they go. Mm-hmm. That's why, if it wasn't for some people in my life, I probably wouldn't be here today. And I don't mean talking to me. I mean showing me, without them even realizing showing me. My friend that I talked about, the kids pastor, he has gone through some stuff back to back to back to back that I don't know of many people who come out of it without self-harm or other things. And no matter what, he always stayed faithful. Always. Mm-hmm. Never. And just having people like that in my life kept that little bit of spark right there. It's like, you know what? If he can do it, mm-hmm. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to do it.
Right.
And to finish this last little part of the thing is, finally, we went to Super Chevy, me and my family. Sarah and Tim Roark are there. And I graduated with his younger brother. And they're there, and we end up sitting next to them, and they invite us to church. And we said, you know what? We've already been to 15 other ones we didn't like, so might as well try this one. And to be honest with you, this is my first time. It is the church is a Baptist church, and it was my first time ever attending or even thinking about going to a Baptist church. The first church we went to, River of Life, was Pentecostal through and through. You know, speaking in tongues. If you ain't got tongues, you ain't got God. And that's how I was raised. You know, you can backslide. There is no once saved, always saved. So coming into this church, the pastor was a breath of fresh air, and I think God set it up perfectly because the word I had in my head was real. I need something freaking real. I need it. I need someone to be themselves.
Yeah.
Well, that guy keeps it real.
Right. Stop putting on a mask every time you get on the pulpit and pretending to be Mr. Super Holy.
Yeah.
None of us are holy. You're human just like I'm human. Act it, please. And a lot of people in the congregation need to understand that the pastor's a real person. They hurt. They use the bathroom just like you do. You know, they're people.
Yeah.
They just have a different calling than you do. And so going in there, he was actually giving a part of his testimony about he used to have a drinking problem back in the day, and he did this and did that and did that. And I'm just hitting there going, thank you. And 3 years later, here we are.
Well, and just keep in mind, I think we all need to. If it weren't for the bad ones, we wouldn't be able to recognize the good ones.
You're right
you know,
there.
At least not right off the bat. You know what I mean? So
If it wasn't for night, you wouldn't have day.
exactly. So that was great. We appreciate you sharing that with us. So
yes.
We really do. Jake, what you got?
Cool. So I'll be really fast.
Oh, you're good.
So
Ain't nobody listening in a rush. I promise. It's going to take them all week to listen to every episode.
we'll have to break this down in pieces, guys. So just real quick. So I'm a twin. I have a twin sister. She and I were born to two drug addict parents. My mother didn't want to raise us. She signed over parental rights to us. My dad was a drug addict. My grandmother raised me until I was 9 years old. My grandmother was a righteous woman. She was a holy woman. Church-going woman through the bone, through and through. So I grew up on the fundamentals of church. With her, we went every time the door was open, and then some. My dad got off drugs in February of 1998. After 21 years of smoking crack and drinking, he had gotten off drugs. And a short time after that, my dad became a pastor of a church, assistant pastor of the church we were in at the time. When I was 12 years old, I started playing music in the church. I played music in the church from 12 until I was 16. And at 16, I went out on the road and started playing music full-time at several youth events and revivals and things of that nature. And I did that until I was 18. And the last time I went on the road, we played 21 nights straight in Texas at a tent revival, youth revival. And so I spent a big portion of my life in church, in spite of what my parents were doing and what they had done and where I could have been. Thankfully, I had a grandmother that cared for me enough when I was younger to keep me and raise me and keep me in the church. And then my dad straightened up relatively quick in my life and remarried and things of that nature. So that's what I did in the church for a long time. Obviously, I was a teenager. I was a guy in his young 20s that did exactly what every other teenager and guy in his young 20s do. I come off the road when I was 18, started working, went to school, put an application in at the fire department, and started volunteering at the fire department, and lived life as fast and as fun as I could for several years. I never steered away from the church. I never steered away from those things, but I did definitely reach out to some things that I don't do anymore. But I always had some sort of moral compass on the inside of me that wouldn't allow me to go but only so far. And there was just certain things that I couldn't do, no matter how bad or nasty I was. There were just always these fundamentals and things that I just never allowed myself to do. And mainly, I was always so afraid that if I ever went too far, I would turn out like my dad and my mom. And so 2 years ago, my mother overdosed on drugs and died. And after a long battle with several sicknesses, and to the point where her drug dealer was bringing her drugs into the hospital. And so there was always this fear on the inside of me that I would be like that if I did not hold close to some sort of moral compass. And thankfully I did. thankfully I did. And so now I'm active in my church. I'm an adult Sunday school teacher. I have a wife, have 2 kids. We mentioned before I was a fireman for several years for the city of Mumford. I'm a business owner now. But I've been active
You can give it a shout out if you want.
shout out to Premier Heat and Air. Shout out to my guys and my office manager, Miss Caitlin. They're rock stars. They have made this business what it is, with no question. We're growing. We're moving. And it's God's grace that's done all this for us. So
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great. Well, we're going to pause real quick and give a shout out to our sponsor, Infinity Heating and Air.
and so that was coming up next. So your sponsor, Infinity Heat and Air. I was going to give him a shout out next. So Alan Nance, owner of Infinity Heat and Air,
That's cool. Everybody
is an exceptional fella. Alan is a fine fella, and Alan and I, we talk at some point in time every single week. It's probably unfair. It's probably unfair to Alan how much he's helped me over the past few years in growing my business. He's actually helped me more than probably anybody else locally, and he's the one that probably had more to lose. So Alan Nance is an exceptional individual. We appreciate Infinity Heat and Air to the point where we go on. Obviously, we bid on some of the same work as Infinity, and it's to the point where I tell my guys, I'm like, hey, if Infinity's whatever they say, that's what we say. Yeah. You know, it's none of we just don't play this game because Alan and I are too close, and he's been too good to us and been a major job. So yeah, so shout out to Infinity Heat and Air too. They're super.
And we and in all honesty, we need guys like y'all, businesses like that, to take care of folks like us. We've got a couple of business owners in here with us right now that are huge in the community, great names. We need that, not to dump on the corporate folks, but communities that we live in, like small communities we live in, word by mouth travels way farther than any internet advertisement, any Yelp page, anything like that. So we certainly do need those businesses that had their starts in the community to continue to take care of the community. So we appreciate the kind words to Alan and them. It really is. You guys, those small owners are really what makes this area flourish. It really does. So we appreciate you guys.
You being a Christian business owner is going to apply well with the scripture today too.
Absolutely. So I appreciate you sharing that. Do you have anything else to add to it?
No, we can tear into this whenever y'all are ready. I've got a lot of stories, man, but God's been good to me.
Well, that's good. Hey, and you're more than welcome, you guys both. We're constantly looking for folks to sit in. I think one of our last guests, Ed, he sat in for 3 or 4 episodes. So we've got some other gentlemen here tonight. They're going to give their input in the next couple of weeks. So we encourage it. We encourage you guys to keep coming back, to sit with us, to learn, to grow. We've got literally people, I don't know if it's a small group, big group. I know that I've sat with Dustin and looked at it a couple of times on a map. We do have people from all over the world that listen to this thing. And nice. It doesn't matter. Just like he said to me, I think I've told the story once before, and I'll say this, and then we'll get into Scripture. And for those listening, we will be in James chapter 5, starting James chapter 5 tonight. We've studied 1 through 6, but we'll probably make it 1 through 3. Otherwise, we'll be here all night. So, but 1 through 3 is packed. But I will say this story, this is how important it is. Not just to, this is how it helped make this important to me. The first time I was here and sat in, after it was over with, Dustin showed me his computer. He's like, hey, I want to show you why this is so cool. And I said, all right. And he said, you see all these points? He showed a map. And he said, you see all these little points, here and there on the map? And it was all over the place. And I said, yeah. He said, those are areas where this thing has been either downloaded once or downloaded a couple of times or listened to, like whatever it was. And those points were all over. I think there was one in Peru. There's, wow. All over. So, and he made the statement to me. It was something to the effect of, if just one listener is the only person in their area that's hearing the gospel and that's taking what is said here to others, right, it's worth anything we can invest in this.
100%.
And that's his idea behind this. And that's, I think, what's overflowing into everybody else that's been a part of it. So doesn't matter if it's one listener, doesn't matter if it's 1 million listeners. I think everybody goes into this with the idea that even if it just reaches one person, it's worth any amount of time, any amount of money, any amount of studying. That
Everybody
we have in it.
wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Luke, you've been pretty quiet. We're going to let you read our scripture
Yeah, that's fine.
and pray
I
us
would like
in.
I would like to say something.
Yeah.
I said a statement earlier about everybody that I went out of town with this past weekend, and I shouldn't have said it the way I said it, as far as them being unsaved, but just the lifestyle, maybe.
Was it said out of love?
Yeah,
Would you have any problem bringing that to me if
No.
you thought that was the case?
no,
I think they'd understand.
okay, but I just want to get that out there.
Sure.
You know, I'm not one to judge or be in that kind of seat.
I thank
We've
goodness we wouldn't be friends.
You weren't
been
judging,
there.
bro.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and let Luke's going to read us in and pray us into the study, and we'll get going.
All right, James 5:1. Come now, you rich, weep and howl, for the riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have eroded, and their corrosion will be evidenced against you, and you will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days. Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are carrying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. If y'all bow your heads real quick, we'll pray us in. Lord, thank you for bringing us together tonight. Lord, thank you for the diverse group of gentlemen here, getting to go over your word, to share your word with those who might be listening, Lord. We pray that it pierces someone's heart and help leads them to you, Lord. We do all this for you and for your glory, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Good deal. All right.
John, you was here last week, right?
Yep.
We give a little recap of where we
Sure.
ended up last week, and then because it does kind of lead for him at his sin, so it does kind of lead into
Yeah, absolutely.
what we're going to.
So at the end of James chapter 4, so one of the things we talked about, and I believe that it's the prevalent. The main theme is the main focus is humility. So the last couple of verses in James 4. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and also do this or that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Therefore, to one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, to him it is sin, right? So what James is saying is like we've got to live in a posture that is humble before the Lord. Put aside all of our desires, all of our wills, and do it, and make that a point every day to live in a posture of humility in front of God. He's given us, it says, therefore, to one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, to him it is sin. The Lord has given us his Spirit. All right, so he has indwelt in us to know right from wrong, to know sin as soon as it happens, right? For the most part. Now, there are times that we're so indebted to ourselves, like that we're so inundated with who we are and what we want, and hyper focused on certain sins that we don't see that it's actually causing us to sin over here. But the bottom line is that we are to live a humble life, a life of humility, setting ourselves aside. Jesus' life was all humility. That's what it taught. It taught humility from A to Z, and not out of obligation, but out of love did he live that sinless life for us and live a humble life. And in turn, we are to do the same thing to the best of our absolute ability, even though we're going to fail every time. So that's kind of how we finished up last week. And I think that's a good segue into 5, because James, the whole book of James itself,
It's a
is
punch in the throat.
it is. Thank goodness it's only a few chapters. And I said that last week. Like, I don't know if I could take any more chapters than the few there is. But it is a lesson on life, how to live life according to Scripture, according to what we know.
So I didn't listen to the very first chapter. I'm sure y'all talked about the backstory and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I do say I don't know if there's any new listeners on this one that didn't listen to that, but from my understanding, this James is Jesus' half brother James, because there's like 4 or 5 of them.
Yes.
That and this was the very first scripture to the first Christian church for the first 10 years after the resurrection of Jesus, before Galatians came out with Paul. So for the first 10 years after Jesus resurrected, this is all they had.
You're talking about just the book of James?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's some backstory I didn't know.
I don't know.
And then Galatians, if you go, because this was written in 40, I believe, if I remember correctly. And then 10 years later, Paul wrote Galatians. If I could be wrong on the Galatians part, but I want to say that was it. But I actually came across that the other day. I was like, that's impressive.
Well, we live in a
10
world
years,
of fact checkers.
This is all
get
they
us.
had.
They'll let you know.
Yeah. So, which, and even if it is, then that's really all you need.
And it's good to remember too that James is talking to believers.
Mm-hmm. Now, he segues into, how, and that was the first question I asked, like, how in the world does this go from living a humble life, like that last part of 4, going into 5, talking about the rich, a category I do not belong to. But
You don't think you do?
Yes, that is true. Let me back up a little bit.
You're John, not Johnny.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I am rich in more ways than I can count. If you're talking about an abundance of monetary value, enough to where it can be that it can corrode. No, I'm not that guy, but even still, that I think it's a perfect leeway into, the more I think about it, into 5. Like, who is living a humble life? Who is that the hardest for? It's the people that don't have to depend on anything to live life. You know what I mean? Not to say that wealth is wrong.
Nope.
And I'd like to start by saying that anybody that's listening, if you've been blessed, we've all been blessed. It doesn't matter.
There's plenty of rich Christians in the Bible.
Yeah.
I promise you. Yeah, absolutely. Joseph of Arimathea, Barnabas. There's people that Zacchaeus. There's people that Jesus talked to that were abundantly wealthy.
Joseph.
There's nothing wrong with wealth. Okay, I just want to clear that up quickly.
Some people's callings require it.
But it's what you do with it.
Yep.
And it's how you seek it. It's where it stands. As far as the level of importance in your life. So there is something to be said about being wealthy. It's how are you using it for kingdom business?
Matthew 19, 23, 24.
I'm happy you said that. 'Cause I had
Jesus
that on the
said to his disciples, "Truly I say to you, only with difficulty will a rich person enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven." And everything that you just said, it's hard to humble yourself. It's hard whenever you get that type of wealth to realize that I don't need anything else. I got everything I need right now. It's hard for you to realize that you still need a savior, because right now you have all the treasures on earth.
Because you don't have to depend on anybody else.
Right. You have it all,
I'm looking up.
Oh.
He'll get it for you. Yeah, you're right. And a lot of people like to throw up that, what is it? It's 1 Timothy, where it talks about the pursuit of money is the root of all evil. It's the pursuit. Money itself is not evil. Right. However, there's not a sin in this world that can be committed that cannot be bought with enough money, that cannot start with a dollar amount. There's not one. So that's why we're to be careful about it. And that's what he's talking about here. He's talking to those people that have
I've
hoarded
seen
up.
1 Timothy 6:10. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evils.
Mm-hmm.
It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's not an evil on this earth that money can't buy. So we've got to be clear about that, and that's exactly what James is talking about here. He's talking to those people, the the wicked wealthy. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about the wealthy. He's talking to the wicked wealthy, the ones that have hoarded everything they have up. He says, "You rich, come on, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries which are coming upon you." Mm-hmm. He's not. I think, from what I understand, what he's saying here is that he's talking about the destiny of those wicked, wealthy.
It's not right now. It's coming.
It's what's coming. Yeah. So he's telling them, hey, it's better for you to weep and howl now and recognize here than to be than to weep and howl later when it's too late.
It's a warning.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Plug your eye out. Cut your hand off.
Absolutely.
Better to do these than to rot in hell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's rebuking it because it's self-indulgence, right? And anything can be anything that's overindulged in for pleasure can be sinful. Anything, it becomes the idol. It takes away worship from the Lord, and it's worshiping whatever it is.
Idolatry.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And again, there's nothing wrong with it.
It's easy to get in that chase.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like, it's easy to do it.
I don't know anybody that at some point has not chased the dollar. We've not chased the dollar to give more. We've chased the dollar to have more, to store up treasures here.
I mean, it's like anything, though. You can make anything your God. Mm-hmm. Money can be your God. Mm-hmm. Sodas can be your God. Anything you put before God himself becomes your God. So
I think what James is saying here is, first of all, nobody's accidentally rich. You have to admit that. Okay, so it's a like nobody wakes up rich. Nobody. And so, and James is wise enough to know that this is like, you didn't accidentally get rich. You're rich because you want to be rich, because your pursuit is riches. And so we, in course, riches and being rich is a relative term. Like everybody, there's a drug dealer out there right now who's got $5,000 in his pocket, and he's probably the richest man in his neighborhood, right? So he's right in his mind, he's rich. And then there's the business owner out there who has $5 million in his checking account, and he's worried he's going to lose it all. So rich is a relative term. It's not, you can apply a dollar amount to any one thing when you say rich, but it's whatever you cleave to. But nobody's accidentally rich. You purposely pursued riches and material things over things of God on purpose. And you've done it for such a long time that now you are rich. You have achieved the things that you were after for so long. And what are they worth to you? Mm-hmm. Like,
and he talks about them storing them up. Right. So it's not even my mother-in-law. She always says, and she's a great person, don't get me wrong, and I don't think she realizes how biblical or spiritual this is. But she has she said it as long as I've known her. She'd rather give with a warm hand,
right?
And I'd never heard that until I met her, and that's the mentality that James is talking about to be aware of. It's great that you have been blessed to this point. It's great that you have. What are you to do with it? What are you? How can you use this to be? Let's go back a chapter. To be humble. How can you use your wealth in humility? Right. All right. And we don't get into politics here. We don't get into foreign policy. We don't get into any of that stuff. We don't. We try to keep it as scripturally based as possible here. But there is a but to that. based on, I'm not here to tell people how to spend their money. However, I do feel like that if just these first couple of scriptures were adhered to by a small percentage of the wealthy in this country, a country that's been blessed beyond blessing,
Right.
our level of poverty would be so minimal that it would be almost unmentionable. If we did, if the wealth in this country were not, I'm not talking about shared, I'm talking about used for kingdom business, given with a warm hand, given with the intent to share and to take care of and to love and to show Christ's love. If just a small percentage of, then you could not be impoverished in this country without making it a personal goal.
Yeah.
You would have to aim for poverty. There is so much to be good, so much in this world that could be done for the good if we had more preachers, more pastors, more churches just discussing these first 5 or 6 verses in
A lot
this
of them
one little
avoid it.
chapter. Of course they do. If the worst thing you can do, or the easiest thing you can scare somebody off with in a church setting, especially a Western church setting, is to talk about how they should spend their money.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
that, I mean,
I seen where I did read where this is one of the least preached on sermons.
I mean,
Yeah,
where
it
did the
is.
rich
when
guy
you're
go?
doing, I was going to
Yeah.
ask that when you guys were looking, even if it was 5 minutes before you got here, or if it was an hour before you got here, sometime during the week, did anybody come across? That was a question I was going to ask. Anybody come across the fact that this was one of the least sought out or spoke on
I have
subjects?
never heard a sermon on this.
And if you can, James is such a small book, and it is impactful, but it's one of those sections where you can just read it and like, oh, I'm not rich, it's not talking to me.
Right.
But it is.
Right.
He is talking to the wicked wealthy, but it is, while it's a rebuke to them and while it is a warning to them, it's also a great lesson for us too. Where are we storing up what we want? Are we, and what we have, we may not see as much, but in contrast to the rest of the world.
Well,
Or
part
how-
of when y'all told me what we were going to go over, part of me when I'm trying to, I can say my way of studying is not only read, but I'll watch several videos and sermons of different pastors and different speakers to get different opinions from different people to get a grasp of the main thing. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of pastors I heard preach that said, oh, James is talking to unsaved people in this part. He's not talking to the saved people. So y'all don't worry about it. God's got us. Prosperity, prosperity, prosperity. He's talking to the sinners on this one. I'm like, no, he ain't.
Well,
No.
and I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know. I didn't look too much into the background of just this specific chapter. But even still, even if he is talking to the unsaved, despicable, wealthy Jews of the day, I don't know how you can be a believer and not see this as a principle in how you should handle your affairs.
I mean, it's little things. Like even like if I have an extra washing machine and I know someone in my church needs a washing machine, give them the washing machine. Why are you hoarding that in the shop? Don't sell it to them. Give it to them with the warm hand.
yeah.
You don't need to profit off everybody's downfalls or their issues.
Preacher man got a nice washing machine over there.
Wash machine, ice machine, microwave.
But like you, I have a similar story. My parents were very giving. I've seen my parents give away 2 cars. I've seen my parents give. My mom is a very talented person that does different crafts. She has tools and stuff in my house that my father has bought her that she makes things and that she could go and make a good business off of if she really just wanted to. And she's like, I just can't. She goes, I don't feel right. She just wants to give. She wants to, that's her heart. So like you, I'm blessed that I had someone like that in my life that I could got some of that off of.
My mother was the same way, or is the same way. It may not have much, but what she has, she's willing to give. And it's just good heart posture, And again, the folks that he's talking to, obviously, it's evident in how they're living, because he addresses them personally. You know, come now, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries, which are coming upon you. He's pointing them out because it's easy to see them. You know, you can't.
They stick out a little bit, don't they?
I mean, you can't hide money. Isn't that what we say?
That's
all
what
the
I
time?
say
You can't
all
hide
the
money?
time. You can't hide money.
So I mean, but it does stick out. But what sticks out more? What sticks out more? Does it stick out that they have their money, or is it sticking out that they're hoarding their money?
Think
And
about
when I
this,
say
too.
hoarding, I want to be perfectly clear. Just because you have, I'm not saying that you should give everything away, even though that's what Jesus said do. I don't do that. I wished I was more of a giving person, you know. But what I'm saying is that who he's specifically talking to are those people that are evident in the community, that are,
Some people just
this
flex.
is mine. Yeah,
Some
exactly.
people just flex. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Jesus had an encounter with a young rich guy and wanted to know what to do, and Jesus said, "Sell it all."
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
didn't. He walked away with his head down.
And I mean,
He
so
valued the treasures more on earth than he would in heaven.
exactly.
There's also a parable in Luke 12:13-21. Have you ever heard of the parable of the rich fool?
Mm-hmm.
You can read it for us if you want to.
You remember the whole thing, or you want me to kind of paraphrase?
Yeah,
it?
go ahead.
Okay.
do
So
you.
There's
big
somebody that's listening that probably hasn't.
okay. So we're in Luke chapter 12, starting at 13. It's called the parable of the rich fool. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me judge or arbiter between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." And we all have possessions. How many people have a storage unit full of crap you don't need? And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant of harvest. He thought to himself, "What should I do? I have no place to store all my crops." Then he said, "This is what I'll do. I'm going to tear down I don't want to change it to Joe's version. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones." Forgive me, I do that when I read. I'll kind of put my own wording on it. Makes me help make sense to myself. I'm going to tear down and build bigger ones. And there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, "You have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry." How many of us do that for retirement? Mm-hmm. I'm going to put back and put back and put back, and I'm going to live easy.
Yeah.
2 more verses.
No, you're good.
But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be damned from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God."
And that's exactly, I mean, that's exactly what we do. We're all guilty of it. You know, no matter what abundance you have. I don't want to get rid of that today. I might need it later on, or I'm not.
You're
gonna,
trained that way from a young age.
Absolutely.
From a very young age, you're
Yeah.
taught if you're at high school, or if you're going to college, or whatever one you get out of, or you're going to a trade school. There's somebody in your ears that's telling you, "Hey man, you need to make sure you start putting back now."
Yep.
So that way, whenever you're 65 and you can retire, you're going to have something.
I mean, nothing against saving. Your
No.
tires are going to go
No.
out.
Yeah. There
You
is.
need to get tires.
I'm not
Sure.
saying not to save it,
Yeah.
but also, are we trying to save up every little penny we got
Right.
and not be able? And whenever we have the ability to help somebody in need, or we have the ability to tithe to the church, or whatever it may be, and we're just sitting on it.
Right.
Well, I heard this
You know.
today, and I'm guilty. It's didn't hit me. That's why I remember it. I remember things that God says, "We save for vacations, but when's the last time you saved to help somebody?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's going back to hoarding, to putting up, like what use, what are you doing? How are you putting this to use? There's something great to be said about being a good steward with your money. Save for retirement, save for, this, that, and like, I can only speak personally. But I've been in situations where I've had nothing. I've been in situations where we've had more than we've ever had. And what is true is that the more I had, the more I spent. And the more, not even the more I had, the more I spent. The more I had, the more I spent on myself.
Yep.
The more
Bigger toys.
The better clothes, the better shoes. My kids didn't go without, and not even because they needed, because I wanted to.
Right.
So it again, even giving with the wrong posture can still be
Y'all know
sinful.
Y'all know I've been wanting to buy a new truck, and then I read this and I'm like,
Right.
Go get that thing, YOLO, baby.
Yeah. Ed, you're not listening. Don't listen. Ed, plug your ears.
Are we talking about Ed Chevrolet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ed, get on Luke. I've got his text me. I got his number.
oh, he's got it too.
Yeah, he's
good.
got it too, I'm sure.
Good.
He probably calls or texts you every now and then, checks on that 4Runner, doesn't he? I would imagine Luke, how's that 4Runner?
He don't. He don't push the issue too bad.
I definitely want to mention again, because I feel like it kind of goes over heads when I say people don't accidentally get rich. But whenever you think about the richest person you know, that person's not even in the top probably 50,000 richest people in the United States. Even the richest person you know, people don't accidentally get rich. People get rich on purpose. On purpose. The people you know who have millions and millions of dollars of liquid cash in the bank are not rich on accident. They are rich on purpose. And that's what we're talking about in James. We're talking about in people who are intentional on setting themselves up so high financially with no end goal. The question you ask people like that, and I'll say this because I know people like that. Honestly, I know people who have tremendous amounts of money, and you ask them a question, what is enough? And they will look at you in the eye and say, I don't know. Okay, these men have more money in the bank than you and I have made in our careers, and they'll look at you and say, I don't know. That they have no idea. And once you understand, and of course, now there's a flip side to this. There are people who live like in poverty, semi-poverty levels. You're a slave to money too. Okay,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
you're working
You're
for a
living
paycheck
paycheck
every
to
week,
paycheck.
right? So you're a slave to money just like they are. Just you're just on the other end of the spectrum. So, but what I'm trying to say is both of you can be wrong on that. But whenever you build it up, so money is liquid, right? So money's liquid. Money only fills up the cylinder you pour it in, and then it spews out over the side. So however big your cylinder is however much money you need to make, and then everything else is a waste, right? It just pours over the side. And then so if you store up lots of money, eventually your money goes away. So if you store it up, you die, you give it to your kids, they spend it. Okay, maybe they didn't spend all of it. Well, your grandkids will. Okay, well, maybe your great-grandkids will, right? So like money's liquid. So to work to obtain something like that is literally a waste of your time, because you can't take it with you when you go. Right. And then your kids can't take it with them, and then their kids can't take it with them. And then so it doesn't say that you should live a depleted life. Right. It's saying, but when God has blessed you with a mind, because you don't get rich by accident. If God has equipped you with a mind that you can bring in tremendous amounts of capital, you have to disperse it, because Judas sold Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, right? He sold Jesus out. And so you don't want to sell him out. Right. You know, in the larger amount that you have, that's the amount you'll spend to sell him out.
Right. And the commentary that I have here in front of me makes a good point. It was a great point. The commentary that I have here, when it's in the first verse and it's talking about, it says, when James tells them that you'll weep and howl for your miseries which are coming upon you, he's saying that they would mourn over their covetousness and selfishness. Right. They would be convicted about their unfair employment practices, and they would see the sin of seeking security in material things rather than in the Lord. And they're going to shed hot tears over the way they had indulged themselves to the fullest extent.
Right.
Where's that at?
This is a commentary that I have, and that explains, like, there will be a day,
right?
Well, they will see the missed opportunities that they will see the missed opportunities. And you said a while ago that we live paycheck to pay. The folks that live paycheck to paycheck and stuff, that we can misconstrue this too, and we can be a slave to money too. Also, true for them. I know we're specifically talking about those that are hoarding wealth right now, but it's also true to those that are a slave to money, that live paycheck to paycheck, which is a large portion of the world, because our focus is on how we can make the money, not on leaning on the Lord to take care of us.
Yeah, because then
He's going to provide for our needs.
You're constantly thinking about how to survive instead of how to live.
Exactly. Great point. So, but yeah, you're right on the money. Both of you are, as far as the security that's found in it. What does that amount to?
If they could take 10%, richest people in the world take 10% of what they have and put it towards spreading the gospel, how much faster would it reach everybody?
That's true. And I don't think that
Jesus
we're going
will
to
be
get
back tomorrow.
I don't. And I don't think that we're going to get to it tonight. You know, we were going to try and get through 6, but once you get into 4, 5, and 6, it really talks to reaching out to those. And there was a great study that you can do if anybody wants to get ahead a little bit for next week. I believe that we'll go through 4, 5, and 6 next week a little bit deeper, but. We are so, I'm not trying to get off topic, but we are so hyper focused on him coming back right now because everything that's going on in the world.
Yep.
God's not going to take his church until everybody that's heard the gospel or that's supposed to hear the gospel is going to hear the gospel.
Yep.
And if you really want to do a pretty interesting study, look at the 1040
1040.
the 1040 area of the world. It's 10/40. Basically. Guys, if and we all trust Facebook. And this was I did a couple of little readings earlier in the week. Again, not trying to get off topic, but just letting you know, like God's gonna take care of us, but He's gonna take care of His own plan. We should be focused on His word and what His word says to do to live, because He's gonna come back when He's ready. Like Jesus is gonna come back at the appointed time, but He's not gonna come back until the church is ready to go. Right. And guys, just so you know, and everybody out there, according to Facebook, we all trust Facebook, right?
Yeah.
But not just Facebook, but there's several other sites that agreed with this that was right there around the same percentages. Roughly 46% of the world's population has heard of Jesus Christ, has heard the gospel. Right. The rest of it live in what's called non-reachable or unreached areas of the world.
Right.
And a lot of that's focused in India and portions of Africa and stuff. They just hadn't heard yet. So what we need to focus on here and now is how to live for Christ, how to show other people Christ through how we live.
It doesn't change our job.
It doesn't at all.
And some people, I think, get the mindset, oh, it's end times, I can sit back and relax and wait. It doesn't change. Someone said something to me a long time ago, I think it might apply to this, is we can't do what Jesus' job, and He's not going to do ours.
Well, and then there's a lot to be said there. In just that little statement too,
right.
Like we're so hyper focused and about trying to predict when He's coming back and telling people when He's coming back and all that. What we need to be doing is yes, look for Him, watch for Him, be watchers, but stay focused on the Word and spread the gospel. And you can do that with your wealth, and that's what James is talking about here. Whatever you're missing out on, you're going to stand in front of a righteous God one day, and you're going to see the missed opportunities that you had to reach those with the blessings that He's allowed you to have anyway, believe it or not. I believe God blesses those that are that have salvation and aren't saved. He's going to do whatever it takes for Him to have His will, and if His will is to use some unbeliever's money to bring people to Jesus, He's going to do it.
Look at Pharaoh.
Exactly. So, so. And the next point that he makes in verse 2 is your riches have rotten and your garments have become moth-eaten. He says, when he uses the words riches, he didn't say your things. He didn't say your stuff. Right. It's a top tier, like your riches. You're rich. And one of the things, and you brought it up just a second ago, about the story that you were talking about, or in Luke, I believe, about the grain. One of the ways that people were very wealthy was how much was their harvest. How big was their harvest year after year after year after year. And they're storing up grains. They're storing up these natural resources that mold and mildew and deteriorate over just a little bit of time. You know what I mean? It probably was more preserved. Well, they probably had, the world was probably a lot healthier back then because of, just the byproducts that, us humans are leaving behind.
And that fundamental has never changed. And if you don't believe that, then you don't believe in inflation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the American dollar that your parents saved in 1999 doesn't have the same value in 2024. And the concept's the same. They stored grain, we store cash. it's rotting away. The value of the money is literally decaying as it sits.
Absolutely.
It doesn't do you any good.
Yeah.
Get rid of it. Move it around. You know, every pastor out there is praying for a rich business owner, sinner man to come in the door with a blank check. You know what I'm saying? Like they're all waiting on that guy to come in there and just stroke that check, baby. Like get that parking lot done, buy that bus, you know, whatever. You know.
You're not lying at all.
And some of the largest corporations in the world are your goods manufacturers, your meat manufacturers, and stuff that without some kind of preservation within days. Right. You're talking about now within days.
I heard earlier that like right now, Walmarts and Kroger's and grocery stores are having some type of parasite in their meats and vegetables, and they're having to like pull them off the shelves.
Where
They've
did
been
I
recalling stuff left and right, I feel.
Well, there was
coming to an
specifically.
end.
Well, they were talking about it 2,000 years ago. Right. So, but you were talking. You said that, and I heard that the other day, and I can't remember what specific meat it was this time, but it was like I heard it, and I was like, wasn't it just chicken a couple of days ago or a couple of weeks ago? Or you know, it's all perishable. Right. You know, and again, it goes back to the way we see the world, what we value, the way that these people value things, commodities. Again, back then they had even their gold and silver. It says will become rusted. You know, we'll get to that in a second. But your garments, everything that anybody got a closet full of stuff they don't wear?
Yep.
Anybody
Yeah,
got a closet full of stuff? You said when I lose that weight, I'm
gonna lose that weight.
Yeah,
That's gonna fit again. Or if I get fat again, that's gonna fit again.
Exactly. Or worse than that, and I've been bad about this, but name brand clothes that you're like, I paid way too much for that. I'm not just giving it away. You know what I mean? Like that's the mentality, and I'm guilty of it too. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm t-shirts and shorts all day long. I think I own 4 or 5 pairs of socks, but it used to not be that way, you know. And it's not that I'm righteous or that I've arrived or anything, but priorities have just changed. Right. You know, how many times do we keep kids' clothes because man, they look so good in that when they were 5 years old. I just can't wait. I just can't get rid of it. I just can't, you know. And yet we have, if anybody wants to do a deep dive into some, and I want people to know that you hear horrible stories about drug cities in Los Angeles and Baltimore and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and areas like that where they're just overrun with drugs and stuff. You want to look into something that really will break your heart. Some of these folks that live in the Appalachia area that just got hit by Helene, there's a large majority of folks up there had nothing anyway. Absolutely nothing. I mean, live so far away. Now, you can say it's their choice. You can say it's the home. You know, it's probably their homestead. It's the way that they've lived. But you get in those mountainous areas, and it's a different lifestyle.
Yeah, those Appalachian people are just a different breed.
They are.
They're built different.
That doesn't make
earth people.
but they're still people.
Right. Yep.
And I say they're still people. They're people.
A buddy of mine's up there, or just got back from up there.
Yeah.
Doing he's with fire and rescue stuff, and he's been up there. He was up there I think 2 weeks or longer in North Carolina. He said it's so different than at home. He said we would literally go to these people's houses who have absolutely nothing, and they're trying to give you the nothing that they have.
Yep.
He said it would be their last bottle of water, and knowing that they wouldn't get no more for a week, and they'd say, "Hey man, you need this water. You look thirsty."
Well, that's the lifestyle they choose to live.
Incredible.
Or maybe that's the lifestyle these kids' parents chose to live. Maybe it's the lifestyle that these kids' parents
came from
chose
somewhere.
to live. Yeah. And they have nothing. It's hard enough for them to get education. We live in a country, not to be political, but all politics aside, we live in a country where that shouldn't be a problem.
Agreed.
No.
That shouldn't be a problem. But it's because so few people, and if we're talking about this amongst, the ones around here, business owners and people that work, I work check to check. You know what I mean? Like I'm not afraid to say it. Like I work check to check. I try, we try to put back when we can, we give when we can't, we do it, but am I storing up money every month? I wished it was an option.
Amen.
But my point is that we're talking about folks that have the means, the folks that even the folks that it's a mentality. It's where your heart lies. We prioritize what is big in our hearts at the time, and until we, James chapter 4, until we humble ourselves and get to the point of absolute nothingness, like everything that we have belongs to Him anyway. So why are we not spending that money or giving those clothes or spending that time focused on giving back because He loved us enough and that's what He requires, and until we get in that mindset, like that's the reason why countries fail. That's the reason why cities fail. It's what are they looking at? What we're trying to be the biggest and the best and hoard all of this nonsense that will mean nothing. It means nothing now. You think it doesn't? Try to go to Venezuela.
Yep.
Try to buy something down there without taking a wheelbarrow to the grocery store. Like inflation's awful. Inflation's awful here. It's going to keep getting worse, but that doesn't negate our responsibility.
Nope.
And it also doesn't take away the harsh reality that one day, just like these guys, we'll stand in front of a righteous God, and not only will we discuss what we did, we'll discuss our missed opportunities. And we will be the ones that will be, like we need to be weeping and howling now, just like these guys are. We need to be doing everything we can to not.
How many times in the last month have you walked away and been like, that was the time that I was supposed to share the gospel?
Oh, I've done it.
Couple.
I mean, we have an opportunity every day.
Every
to do
day.
it.
That's actually something recently. And I don't like to talk about my stuff because I'm a firm believer in don't let your left hand see what your right hand's doing. But God has been really good at revealing things to me more these past month, roughly, past 3 weeks. And it's really hitting me hard because one thing I've always struggled with is I'm cool anywhere in the world, but when I'm at work, a side of me comes out that's not the best Christian. And I've been more convicted this past few weeks than I've ever been, and it really hit me because I said something at work, and a guy, though he was saying it jokingly, he goes, "That was very Christian of you, wasn't it?" And I was like, when you hear it, though you were making fun of me and he didn't mean it as a correction, but I most definitely took it as one. I'm like, you ain't lying. You're right. And it wasn't. And so I've really been making strides on praying more about Jesus helping me show Him at work more than myself. And I actually had an opportunity to share the gospel with a young man 2 days ago. He's going through some hard time, and me and him was just kicking it, and he's been coming to me a lot lately, and I just spit it out at him. I mean, it's not like he got saved right there, but he heard it. He's more or less, if I'm feeling up to it, I'll give it a shot here whenever, but he heard it. Like our pastor said, there's what was the average? About people hear the gospel 3 times, roughly, on average, before they...
I think it's 7 times.
Yeah, it was something, I forgot what the number was, but he said a person would hear the gospel so many times before they actually give it and actually accept it.
7 times?
I think it's 7 times.
It's 3 or 7. It's one of those two holy numbers.
I think it was around 7, and some people are more. I mean, think about how many times. I mean, I heard the gospel a bunch of times. I grew up going to church, but I didn't give it up. I didn't give it in. You know what I'm saying? Until the last 2 years.
Lukewarm, kind of, sort of.
I was lukewarm. I mean, yeah, I believe there was a God, but I wasn't living that lifestyle. I'd rather go out and drink and party and do whatever I wanted to.
Agreed.
And I wouldn't go to church every Sunday or on Wednesdays, and
Easter and Christmas.
I got good parents, but they, Dad still, that's kind of lifestyle he kind of grew up doing, and I just kind of followed those footsteps because that's what I knew, and that's how I thought it was supposed to be, and I was supposed to have the time of my life.
Yeah.
Well, it took a bunch of times for it to finally sink in that, hey, you idiot. You know what I'm saying? But once you give it up and realize it's the greatest thing that's ever happened, and you realize that for so long I was chasing and chasing and chasing. What was I chasing? I was chasing this dollar. I was chasing this and that. Dude, I was driving down the interstate one day, and I'd done been chasing money and chasing jobs and trying to figure out life and this and that, and felt like I could not find my purpose
Right.
until I said,
That's the word right there, purpose.
God, I can't figure this out on my own no more. I can't do it. I've never been able to do it. Anytime that I've had a hard thing to say, I prayed to you, and I don't know if it was the right thing I was saying or not. I don't know if I was saying it really out of the chest, or was it something that I wanted? Just like they're saying here, you want it, you want more money, you want more things, and all that crap. And it wasn't until I was like, I have to find my purpose in life, and I can't find it doing it by myself. And the Lord is the only thing that can lead me to where He wants me to go for His will, not mine, because I was chasing mine. But I had to start. I realized that I had to start living for Him and His will, and do what He wanted me to do, and share the gospel with everybody that I can for Him, because that's what He wants. And whenever I finally realized all that, and realized that I'm chasing my tail over and over again, and whenever I gave it up and gave it to Him and said, Lord, I'm living for you and your will and what you want for me to do for you in my life, if that makes sense how I said that.
Yeah.
Dude, I haven't felt where's my purpose since.
Right.
That purpose has been there. Like, I am, Lord, you just work.
Well, and when you tie your purpose around, just like these folks have, when you tie your purpose around what you have, and your hope is not even really hope, it is in fear of losing that you've hoarded up, then your purpose turns into the chasing the tail thing. You know what I mean? Like, your only purpose is to make more, keep what you got, make more, keep what you got. And the prosperity gospel will tell you, well, the more you give, the more you'll get.
Right.
Well, I say we ask Paul that.
Yeah.
Because that ain't really what happened to him.
You can ask any of them.
But let me ask you this, Luke, though, like, just in that synopsis of your testimony, like, since then, you haven't made $1 million.
Heck no.
Okay.
Man.
Since then, the rat race hasn't stopped, though, right?
I'm still broke.
But let me ask you this. Okay, but now that you
don't
realize
care.
your purpose, where's your hope lie, though?
In the Lord.
In
Look,
Him,
here,
and in
this,
nothing.
This
none
is
of this
one of my
stuff.
favorite verses. I actually shared this verse with a guy at work today, because he was talking about all this stuff going on and this and that. I said, I revert back to Matthew 6:34. Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself.
Right.
Sufficient for the day is its own trouble.
Man.
And we can't worry about what's going on tomorrow, the next day, what we hoard up, what we keep, what we want to take with us,
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter.
No.
We have to worry about where we're at today, what we can do for the Lord today,
See,
and tomorrow will take care of itself, because He already knows the plans.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and even though it's what we should do. I mean, specifically, Jesus said that hoarding wealth is wrong.
Yeah.
He said, don't.
James just told you what was going to happen to you.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So, and these, these guys they're going to cry one way or another.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're going to weep one way or another. Either they can cry out in realization now that what they've done or what they're doing, the way they're living, all of us, that it's wrong, or we can cry out in pain and agony later when it's too late. Right. So where do our
Let that flesh be on fire.
Yeah, and it's no look, and it's no wonder that the majority of the people that Jesus put Himself around and were the poor, the ones that had no hope,
Right.
the ones that had they couldn't see the next meal, they couldn't they needed hope, they needed peace, they needed some sort of just purpose? I'm here, I'm starving, I can't work, I can't do, like, I have no purpose. What's my purpose? Your purpose is to, well, here's Jesus. Right. Let's let him tell you what your purpose is. Right. And the ones that we're talking about tonight, those that are rich, the wicked wealthy, they don't have that. That's why they keep grasping for more. That's why they want to put up more. And they know that it's going to go to waste. I can't imagine having multiple properties as far as houses. Now, I'm not talking about rentals and investment. I'm talking about multiple properties. They're just mine. Like, that's more of a hassle, more of a headache. What can you do with that?
I can tell you what it's like.
And I know it's easy.
Not
for
me personally, but I know a really good buddy.
And
that's my grandpa.
I know that it's easy for us to say, well, I would do this, I would do that, but I've never been in a position to have that kind of wealth and say, here, and give it, So to say that it's not a struggle for these folks is wrong. Yeah. I just know what Scripture tells us. I guarantee it. But I also know this, and we're taught too that you can't outgive God, Right. So the more you give to His people, the more that you move His business and abide to His will, the more He's going to bless you with, whether it's monetary or not. But the world doesn't see it.
Anything He gives to us, whenever we go to glory, we're just going to give it right back to Him.
Even if He doesn't bless you or give you nothing back, it shouldn't change the fact that we should give.
That's true.
A lot of people just. That's that whole prosperity thing you just talked about. Give, and you're going to get. But,
And giving, we talk about giving and giving. It doesn't have to be. I know everybody thinks you give money. Mm-hmm. Just give money to somebody to help somebody out. It doesn't have to just be money.
If you look in the Bible, anytime money's involved or giving, actual physical money was not mentioned rarely ever. It was always talking about harvest, crops, spices. Even in Matthew 23, I think it is, when they asked Jesus about it, he goes, yes, continue to give your herbs and spices. Yeah. Even then he didn't say, yeah, you should give a bag of silver.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I remember whenever I was working with you down there, and driving down the road, and you got a homeless guy on the side of the road. I'd give him my sandwich that I was going to eat for lunch and some chips. He had a little dog that was with him. I'd give him the whatever else I had for the dog, and just be like, have a good day.
We got to draw the line on some of those people, though.
I don't want to get in trouble.
You talking about old boy over at Parkway and Poplar?
He had one leg.
I don't know.
No, this was
they all got one leg or a limp.
Yeah,
all of them.
This one had one leg and a dog. Yeah.
The dogs, and isn't it sad that the dogs are usually what breaks you down? Breaks you down like a shade tree mechanic. Boy.
That poor little puppy.
You can see old boy walking up and down the street all day long, 10 days in a row. He gets that puppy with him.
That looked just like Skip.
There's
people are starting to bring their kids out.
There's one of them. There's one on Night Arnold. They've been burying the same 7-year-old for 3 years. I'm like, at some point, we got to get this little girl buried, guys. You can only hold that thing up for so many years. It's like, holy smokes.
And I hate that. I hate the con artists out here, because I am guilty of being one who has not given because of that.
Right.
And, I don't drive to Memphis anymore, but when I worked out there, you pass, especially in the morning on your way to work, these guys are working every corner, and some of them got a Mercedes-Benz up the street, and it hardens your heart, and you're like, yeah, I ain't doing that.
It was a guy the paparazzi followed in like Hollywood, and he was like a doctor or something and had bukus of money, but he done it as like his own little experiment to see what would happen. He started making so much money he couldn't stand it.
You talking about the window washing guy, the one that would?
No, this was like a dude that was holding out his hand like, I need some cash. Yeah, and dude ended up like, they followed him one day, and he walked around, changed his clothes, got in his Mercedes or whatever, went to his house that was sitting on top of Beverly Hills, and they was like, what in the world is going on? He was like, dude, I got addicted.
Bro, some people making $60,000+ a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's what I do. What I follow is real simple. When it comes to giving, like just giving, and I have a giving heart. Anyways, I just
you do have a giving heart.
I do. I just do. My dad's a giver like that. I am too, and so And so what I do is if I look at you and I want to give, I just do it. I don't even think about it again. I don't reason it in my mind. There's nothing that's going to stop me from doing, whether it's buying your lunch, giving you money, whatever the case may be. If I look at you and I want to give you something, I'm going to give it to you right then. Like I'm not going to stumble over it. I'm not going to question God. I give it immediately. And if I don't feel that, then I don't. And that's my moral compass. That's the way that I go by. If instantly I feel this need, I just give. And I don't even know what's going on in your life, right? And so, like, my wife and I, when we were dating, we would go out to dinners and things like that. And, man, there were so many times that we'd be out to dinner, and I'd buy somebody's dinner that I saw sitting there. Like, she's like, you know them? I'm like, I have no clue who they are.
Holy Spirit, man.
Right? And she's like, what? Are you just going to buy their dinner? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to buy their dinner. And she's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. I looked at them, and, like, somebody needs to buy them something to eat. You know, and it'd be a nice restaurant. You know, you're talking about another 30, 40 bucks. This guy's got money to be at a restaurant, sitting at a bar, drinking by himself. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what it was. Hope he never finds out it was me, you know, but I just, like, I saw him. Right. And so that's the way I do it. Mm-hmm. And my dad's one of those people, and he'd probably kill me if he knew I was talking about this. My dad's one of those people, like I said, he's a pastor now, but my dad, he walks around, he has cash in his pocket all the time, and he keeps a $100 bill folded twice in his wallet to give somebody every day of the week. Every day of the year, every hour of the day, my dad has a $100 bill folded in his wallet waiting to give somebody. I don't care how much money my dad has, and he's a pastor. You don't have a whole lot of money now, but he has a $100 bill folded up waiting for God to tell him to give somebody. Wow. And at just any minute during the day, he may stumble upon somebody, and he may carry that money around for a month. He may carry it around for 2 months. But when he sees the person, he instantly feels it, and he pulls that money and hands it to him.
Wow. See, but that changed your life.
Right.
And that's going to change your kid's life.
Right, and that's the reason why, of course, you know, being in business.
Back whenever you and Katie was dating, you was broke too.
I was, and I guess relatively speaking, I'm broke now. I mean, I owe more money to the bank than I'm probably worth, and so that inherently that's just the way it is when you have a business. But when you are a business owner, you do handle a lot of money. You don't really make a tremendous amount. You make good money, but you don't make a tremendous amount of money. But
you don't do what people think you do.
Right, but you handle a lot of money. You know, I mean, there are days that you know, even a business my size, you handle thousands and thousands of dollars in one day, and so you get a different perception of what money is, right? You understand how easy it is for people to get crooked and try to rip the government off whenever they can handle that kind of money, and so you get a different perception of it. But my thing's always been is like, man, like there's only a certain dollar amount. I heard a guy say this one time, and he was actually under the influence of alcohol, so he wasn't even like, we weren't even having wholesome podcast talk whenever he was at my table talking to me. We were eating catfish, and he come up there, and he's like, man, I tell you what, and this guy's got a lot of word in him, a lot of scripture, and he said, I tell you what, he said, it wouldn't do me no good having $1 million. He said, God give me $1 million, that'd just be more money for me to give away. And I'm like, you're exactly right. Like, that's the reason why I'll probably never have $1 million. I could work hard the rest of my life, but I can only count so high, you know, and then the rest of it, man, I couldn't find anything to do with it, you know, except just give it to somebody else, you know, and that's the reason why I say, like, it's a heart thing, you know, like if God, and of course, so I'm industrious and an entrepreneur, and so I've bought real estate, and I've owned cattle, and I've flipped houses, and I've bought rental houses, and I bought 2 businesses last year to create the business that I have now, and so, like, to say that I don't understand money and how it works is, you know, I have a pretty good understanding of how, you know, leverage works and loans and things of that nature. But God didn't give me this ability that I have and this desire that I have to just be a millionaire guy that owns a service business. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't the biggest service business in the Western Tennessee or whatever the case may be, right? So God didn't give me this ability to do that. He gave me this ability to further the kingdom, you know, and by me being a business owner and doing what I've done over these past few years, it has created so much more opportunity for me to reach out to people. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, the money comes, but that ain't what it's about. Like, realistically, like, I mean, we got to pay our bills. Somebody's got to make a salary here, you know, but, like, man, when it gets down to it, like, all I care about is you making the heaven. You know what I'm saying? If you want to come work for me, that's cool. Like, I'll hook you up. I'll pay you however you want to get paid. You can come. We'll do it. But every once in a while, like, we'll talk about Jesus, and we're gonna talk about him, like, deep. You know, we're just not gonna just give you just this fairy tale story of Jesus. We're gonna talk about who you are as a man in your home, who you're supposed to be. You know, who God called you to be. And sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, being the man of the home probably sucks. You know, because you have a lot of responsibility. and you have the weight of that on your shoulders. And we talk about that at my work, you know, and if God had not given me the ability to create a business and an atmosphere, I wouldn't have the potential to reach out to these people the way that I do.
Amen.
You know, and so I see that. I see it for what it is. So many people don't. You know, I see it for what it is, that God give me all this, and now I have it, and I better do something with it. You know, and if I have it in abundance, it's only because He gave it to me to give away, because it doesn't have anything to do with money. Like, my wife and I could live in a huge mansion and drive fancy cars and things like that. Like, that's aspirations for some people, and it just doesn't mean anything to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, because in the end, it's all gone.
Yeah.
It's all gone. I could leave it to my kids, and then they'd spend it.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
That Toyota may run forever.
That little Toyota is the talk of the town. Everybody will buy that truck,
no doubt.
on any given day. They do love that truck. But, you know, and that's what I realized. That's what I realized whenever I started really understanding what God was doing with me and what He'd called me to do and who He wanted me to be. I understood it was not what I was, who I was, and it was not where I was going to end up, but it was who I was becoming during the process. Mm-hmm. And that's when I knew that I got it. Mm-hmm. That's when the light bulb went off. Like, it's not the pursuit of monetary value. It's not the pursuit of all these lavish things. It's none of this. It's, I have put you in this position. I have equipped you to do what you do only so you can use it for my glory, right? So you have the activity of your limbs and the function of your brain so that you could do something to further the kingdom, right? And I realized that it's not where I'm headed, right? It's just who He's making me out to be while I'm here.
Yep.
You know? And so, you know, whenever you're not in pursuit of the things like the wicked rich are, you know, when you're not really focused on those things, you are being given to in abundance, whether you realize it or not. You know, whether you realize that, you know, He is mindful of you and where you're at in your life. And if you don't realize that, you need to know that He is. And even if you don't have the same thing that these other guys, and, you know, I was brought up old school church, you had to pay your tithes, or you had a curse on your money, this and that, right? So I was brought up with a lot of that teaching, and I couldn't ever make sense of it, because even in my young mind, I knew people who didn't go to church and had a lot more money than everybody I went to church with. Now I'm like, well, they don't pay their tithes. How come they have money? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I couldn't make sense of it. So I realized then it was lack of money management in the church house, and that these people were, you know, lying to me. But, you know, I know now that God has put me in the position that He's put me in, and not that I'm rich by any stretch of the imagination, but I realize now that God has put me in the position that I'm in to be a caretaker and to see over the people that do work with me and work for me, and the people that we serve and help, our customers, you know, that we do it like nobody else can do it. Not because we're in comparison with anybody else, but we do it truly from the heart. You know what I'm saying? We do it from God's heart.
Yeah.
You know, and we have to make a living. So I tell my guys, like, listen, we have to make a living. You know how much money we have to make a living. Like, you know how much money you make in a week, right?
Right.
You can't not make that, you know, in tickets for too many weeks, and we survive, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have to make a living. But they know, like, they know where I draw the line. It's not even a phone call like, hey, boss, like, she's on hard times, this and that. Like, it's not like, I'm like, follow your moral compass. If you walk in that home and you're like, these people need our help, I'm like, you just help them. Like, I don't even care what it costs. You just go to the supply house, you get whatever you need to get, you help them. Just, hey, it's on us. You know what I'm saying?
Really?
Like yeah, like that's how we do it. And now my guys don't even call me. They don't even call me. If there's somebody's house and they get a $0 ticket, I don't even ask. Like, something told them that these people were the people we needed to help. They met the criteria, you know, and so that's kind of how we do it, you know. And dude, God's blessed us. You know, He's blessed us so much.
Yeah, you can't outgive Him.
You can't do it.
If you try,
you can't.
I mean, if you test Him on it and you try, you'll never get there. Like I used to tell, it's awful. It's awful to say, because it was back when I was in sales. But I used to tell my sales guys all the time, if you outsell me,
right,
or if you out-earn me, you could never out-earn me.
Right.
Like, if you're out there making more than I am, based on my percentage,
right,
based on what, like, you'll never out-earn me.
Right.
And that was my mentality.
Right.
Like, go get it,
right,
you know. But that's how God works, though.
Right.
You cannot outgive Him. You think that you're going to outgive me? Let me show you this.
Right.
I'm going to put a business out there that not only not only are these men, I'm gonna lump all you guys in here. Johnny, Jake, Alan, DK. I'll lump y'all in here because y'all have hearts for the Lord. But you give men like that businesses. If the Lord gives men like that businesses, all it's going to do is further His purpose, because those men are going to run those
help
businesses
it.
with the responsibility in mind that He has entrusted them with this. None of you guys think that anything belongs to you.
Right.
It's all
Yeah.
His anyway.
And think about this, even with your businesses, at a certain point there'll be extra time allotted for you to do kingdom minded work
Right.
rather than having to go to the office. You know, you now have time to sit down and say, do your study for your Sunday school class or whatever it may be.
Right.
And going to a regular 9 to 5, sometimes it's with kids, sometimes it's hard to find that time in there. You know what I'm saying?
And that's the difference between the people that James is talking to here and the people that we're talking about now. The people that have this, that are hoarding it up, have failed to realize the responsibility they have to take care of others.
Right.
They've just failed to either, one, acknowledge it, or two, do something with it once it's acknowledged.
Take that same mind, that same heart you have for producing and having, and use it for the kingdom.
Yeah.
And not because the money matters, because the money doesn't matter. It matters where your heart's at when you do it. That's what it matters.
So when you were talking, what came to my mind, and heart most definitely was part of it, but I'm like, this guy's a product of God, experience, and perspective. Like, through your experiences with your family and what you went through, you let God take your life and your experiences and the trials, and this is what came out of it. And it's beautiful. I'm over here just like, this is incredible.
Yeah,
You know,
Thank
like,
you.
It's been
I'm
good
serious,
talk.
man.
It's
You
been good
don't-
talk, and there's also, and as good a conversation as it's stirring up. There's also, I know I'm looking. We're running on 2 hours right now. We're going to go into the last part.
You're gonna get 27 episodes out of this.
I told y'all, once you get into 1 through 3, like it can go deep. The last part, the last verse is, your gold and your silver have rusted. Their rust will be a witness against you and will consume your flesh like fire. It's in the last days that you've stored up your treasure. Again, going back to this commentary, most of the time I don't use just the commentary, but this one, this commentary I usually use a lot. But this one,
it hit on the numbers
it was.
with this one.
It's talking about corrosion, and this is exactly what this says. So you guys listen up, and then I want to hear your thoughts on it.
First off, can I bring up the fact that, I don't know, I had to step away for a second, but you bring up the 3 to 4, you can call it whichever one you want, the ways that they portrayed wealth back then.
We did talk about like grains, and of course he's talking about garments,
the food, the garments, the gold and the silver.
Yeah, and none of it cannot be destroyed.
Yeah.
Every one of the 4
you
has a shelf life
Yeah,
on
if,
it.
if you was eating steak and potatoes, or if you had that right drip on, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it all has a shelf life. It can be
Yeah.
taken by consumed by fire. It can be taken by time.
Right.
Nothing is preserved forever that we have here. The only thing that's preserved forever is our salvation.
Amen.
He's talking
Go
about
ahead.
corrosion as far as speaking of disuse and decay. This will be a condemning testimony against the rich. If this was true for the rich people of James's day, how much more true is it of believers in our day? What will be our condemnation if we have had the means of spreading the gospel and have failed to use it? If we've hoarded material things when they might have been used for the salvation of souls, not even just doing good,
Right.
take it further, for the salvation of souls. The expression, their corrosion will eat your flesh like fire, means that their failure, our failure to use their riches for the good of others, would cause them the keenest suffering and remorse. I don't want to be there.
Sir.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, and again, we're not talking about damnation.
Right.
We're talking, I go back to it all the time because he buries it in my head every week. but Dustin mentions it all the time, the responsibility that we have, because one day we'll stand in front of a righteous God, and we will either, while he will reward us, we're not going to be able to bypass the missed opportunities. We're not going to be able to bypass the opportunities and the responsibility we had. He's given us his Spirit for a reason. Guys, this is, everybody listen, this is not a spirit that he conjured up and said, hey, separate from me, this is what I'm going to give you. No, this is the same Spirit. This is the third part of the triune God. This is his Spirit that he breathed into Adam that has gone through generations into us. We are a breathing component of the creator of the universe. Amen. What are we going to do with the responsibilities that he's given us? We can't hoard them up. I do not want to be the guy that stands there and says, everything that I had, I left back there.
Right.
Right.
I want to bury that talent.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's a serious situation. If you guys have anything that you'd like to add, let's go for it. If not, we can move into the main point.
Main point.
Yep.
I'm okay with that.
All right. What you got, Luke?
I was just going to say that my main point tonight would just be all of our luxuries are things that are we've been blessed with, because everybody's blessed with something. We should not be thinking about how we could keep it, store it, use it for our own personal gain, but how can we put it out there for his glory?
Yeah.
How can we give it back to God?
Yeah. And it's funny you said that, because my question, it was a question, is what I'm doing with what I have glorifying God?
Amen.
Yeah.
What you got, Luke? What would be your main point of the 3 verses that we covered?
I had a good point in my mind. So
I do that every week.
right, just kind of I'm like, man, thinking I'm all over the place right now. So kind of going back to what Luke said, I think that there is life after this one, and compared to eternity, living on this earth in this body that you walk around in is the shortest thing you'll ever do. And so to feel this need to accomplish something in maybe your 74, 75 years you'll live, that's going to be obtainable as far as history is concerned is pretty slim. And so if you had to put your focus on something and you had to charge after and pursue, make sure you pursue eternal things. Nice. Because this life is fleeting so fast.
Absolutely.
Quickly.
Joe, what you got? And when you get done, why don't you go ahead and tell the world that's listening the greatest neuse there ever was?
For one, I need to stop talking after him. His words, he uses them well. Well, it made me think about in Luke chapter 16, verses 19 through 31. Y'all know the rich man and Lazarus, right? Mm-hmm. It's that same thing. Like, we don't think about it here. He didn't think about it while he was alive, but once he died and he was suffering, and then the Lazarus who was suffering is now comfortable. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be that guy, and no, I don't. I do well financially. I can survive. My bills get paid. Do I make an abundance of money right now where I can throw thousands of dollars at things? No. But like I was telling him earlier, I have a lot of stuff that I don't use. Mm-hmm. Whether or not this very second I can't think of something specific that I know would be useful to somebody, but my shop's full of stuff. I got stuff everywhere. I got clothes everywhere. And I wouldn't mind a couple loads of laundry less.
No doubt.
But no, I mean, in all reality, I kind of got the same main point as Luke about just I may not be money rich, but I do have a lot of stuff that may or may not be able to be used by someone else that may not have.
Yeah.
Not to say that one man's junk's another man's treasure, but in some cases it most definitely is. But anyways, that's pretty much my main point. And yeah. So you said share the gospel?
That's it. Let's hear it.
Not quite sure how to
Nobody is.
go about this.
It has to be a tricky one.
Sharing the gospel.
Yeah, like
It chokes me up every time.
Well, my thing is like, I was listening to y'all's podcast last week, and I got to this point, and someone called for me right before he said it. Because I was going to listen to it specifically, because I had it in my head. I'm like, they're going to call me out tonight. I know it, and I've never listened to it.
So say you're fixing to share the gospel with somebody,
Yep.
but you're fixing to lay it on them and tell them what Christ done for all of us here.
you got to make
on
us.
earth.
You got to
Yeah.
make us cry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's
like,
probably
Yeah.
not going to happen. And
That's all right.
y'all talk about getting
short,
text
it can
messages
be
from
short,
people.
sweet.
Yeah, make
the
it to where
point,
the
whatever
person
you
that
want.
if they tell you no, they're gonna feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Like, man, I told him and
Well,
Jesus
here's
no.
the thing. Ultimately, and I guess it's going to come across different depending on the person giving the news, but it all goes back to the same thing, Jesus. So the entire Bible, everything from the start to the finish, Jesus. Every story, everybody's life that was recorded, Jesus. Everything falls back on Jesus. With the fall of man in Genesis 3 with Adam and Eve, that entered sin into the world, and that made it to where now, today, when we are born, we are separate from God, correct? And we are all condemned, period. I actually made a post on Facebook the other day about this. That person at the grocery store, condemned. That person at the gym, condemned. Everybody, we are condemned, we're born condemned. And God looked down on us, knew we couldn't do nothing about it. Actually, he made this plan from the very start, as Pastor said Sunday. The very first sermon ever preached was when God was talking to Satan. He let him know right then exactly what was going to happen. So he already made a plan for us then to save us right after we messed up. And I love the story, and I never thought about it and about the reason why God did the things he did with how he told we had to get them out of the garden so they don't eat of the tree of life and live forever. Because in order to be saved, we have to die. So we don't, we die to our sins to be resurrected, to be brought back perfect through Jesus. But anyways, so, of course, God makes this phenomenal plan that takes thousands of years to complete, but on the perfect day, on the perfect time, Jesus came, he was born, lived the perfect life, fulfilled all the laws, what we couldn't do. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
No, you're good.
It's just I went so many years of my life hearing the story, and I remember seeing people who responded crying or responded a certain way, and I'm like, why do I not feel that way? Why can't I just grasp it the way that person's grasping it? And it's like, I never just fully understood exactly what it meant. And there's people who are going to listen to me mumble and stumble over my words right now who are probably going to be like, I have no idea what this guy's talking about. But to understand that my sins, when sin in the world, sin equals death, period. When you mess up, the only price is blood, period. No matter what, you lied, death. You killed, death. You stole, death. Your price for your sin is death, period. You're condemned. But the fact that Jesus did what he did, he didn't have to. He could have started over again, in all reality. It wouldn't have been nothing but a couple words. But for whatever reason, he loves us the way he loves us and went through all this trouble to make sure we were saved. He came down, lived the perfect life, fulfilled all the laws that we could not and never would have been able to do, died, defeated death, rose again, and now when God looks at us, instead of seeing all our filth, he sees his son, and we're saved. And for anybody listening, be careful who you look at and don't put people on pedestals. We are all the same. Everybody deserves the same fate. Whether you are the worst of the worst person out there, and we won't go into the details, or if you're a good moral person that was raised in a beautiful home with the Brady Bunch. Without Jesus, you go to hell. We're all the same. It's the same price. There's one way, and that's Jesus.
And that's it.
That's it.
That's good. That's great. And like we always hear, today's the day of salvation. Anybody out there that's listening that's never put their faith and their trust in Jesus Christ, he's calling you. If you're listening to this, he's calling. God would that no man would perish, but that all would come to everlasting life. He loves you. He can only express his love through the death of his perfect Son, Jesus Christ. And if you believe that, if you confess with your mouth, even your heart, it's not about a prayer, it's not about a feeling, it's about the truth. And the truth is that sin deserves punishment. And Jesus took that from us. And just like Joe said, God no longer looks at us as sinners. All he sees is the perfect atoning blood of his Son, Jesus Christ. All right, with that, Luke, we be done.
Y'all ready to hit that outro?
Let's get it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to On the Hunt podcast. We love that y'all are listening. We love that we're giving all the glory to God. Tell your mama and them all about the episodes. Share it with everybody. Thank you again to Infinity Heating and Air for keeping us cool tonight in the shop. Call them for all your HVAC needs. 901-622-HVAC. That's 4822. And if they don't answer the phone, call Premier. Jake will take care of you. We're out.